BG, I posted that reel I did of you on Facebook, and in 1 hour it had a fucking 175 views. Blows my mind, man. Yeah, that was a popular one. Sometimes I think it has to do with what song you use, and that is a popular song. So,
yeah, that's good. That's awesome that this is going good for you guys, man.
yeah,
I love it.
Oh, cool, man. I'm glad. Let's see. I'm copying the link. Now I gotta go back to my page. And paste. I always get rid of that gibberish because you don't even have to have that. You can just post the live feed. Okay, so we are live on my Facebook page now, BG. And if you want, I mean, again, I'm just up to you. If you wanted to, you can go to my page, copy that link, and then paste it to your page. And, you could say, hey, I'm going to be on this show today if you want to listen or watch.
Right on.
Looks like we already got one person viewing. We do get people on there ahead of time. So, Dean, just to clarify, am I going to play the videos or are you going to play the videos?
I'll kick them in.
Okay, great. And you were able to fix that one that was inverted?
Fixing now.
Okay, because, yeah, we never did go and actually check it. But I have 110% confidence in you that it is good. And I just checked the Twitter page. We are live on Twitter. I'll check the YouTube. And
hey, BG.
We are live
yes, sir.
on YouTube.
Just FYI, if there's a moment where you're not talking for a bit, do you know how to mute your mic?
Yeah, I see it down here.
Okay. I'd probably get used to that because your mic picks up every chair creak or every breath you take. So even
does it really?
Oh yeah, we're hearing everything.
That's wild because it's AirPods, iPhone earbuds.
Oh well, it's just
yeah, you definitely got a squeaky chair.
Wow,
good, bro. Don't worry about it. Just try.
I guess it's the table, probably.
Yeah.
Just if you happen to, before you chime in, if you happen to notice your mic is muted, then I might have muted you, but then you have to unmute yourself.
Okay.
The video's up.
But the opioid epidemic rate.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to take a peek.
I dig it.
Okay.
Let me see if.
All right, we are 1 minute away. 1 minute, y'all.
Okay.
Looks like we got a couple viewers already, and they can't
well
hear us right
caffeinated.
now,
I am ready
Hi,
to
y'all.
rock.
Welcome. Peace. 3 viewers.
Okay, we have to get to, what do I have to get to next? We have to get to the slide.
BG, can you see the chat room just out of curiosity?
No.
Okay.
No, sir. Unless.
Are you on your phone or your computer?
Computer.
Yeah, it's over on the right-hand side where it says comments.
Oh, yeah, I see what's
on
okay.
that. And we ordinarily do get, some activity in the chat room. So, you can just follow along if you want to. And I'll invite people to call in today if they want. All right, get ready. We're going to have 10 seconds.
Yep.
Have a fun show, you guys. Let's do this in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. On average, just in the United States, about 220 people die every single day from an opiate overdose. By the time we finish this show, 8 to 10 people are going to die from an opiate overdose. If we get even one person, one viewer with this program that we might be able to help with some of the information that's shared on here, then it's all worth it. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dare Me podcast. It's your old pal Glenn Victor. Peace. Thanks for tuning in. Looks like we've already got a few viewers and listeners on the show today, and we ordinarily get more as we go along. We are coming to you live right now. I'm out here in Sacramento, California on the West Coast, and right out of the gate, we want to bring in our co-host and producer and rock star partner in crime, Dean Baker, from all the way over on the other side of the country, live from Orlando, Florida. There's Dean.
Well, looks like we have everybody in here now.
We got everybody. We also got that boy BG from Detroit City up in the Midwest on the show today, our special guest. BG, we're so happy to have you on the show today, man. Thanks for being with us, bro.
Yes, sir, man. Super grateful to be here, Glenn. I am. I appreciate the invite. I do.
Oh God, I'm looking forward to the conversation we're going to have, and we'll be doing the old deep dive, as they say, in the conversation with BG in just a little bit on the show. But I got to tell you guys, man, it is hot as hell out here on the West Coast right now.
I saw that post. It was like 101 degrees or something like that.
Yeah, and today is actually like supposed to be the hottest day. It's about 110 degrees outside right now. And not to sound cliche, y'all, but you probably heard over the years the old saying that out west it's a different kind of heat. And Dean, you being in Orlando, I know you've lived there as long as I did, man. It is different. It's very humid down in Orlando. I love Orlando weather, but it is humid. And it's like I was laying by the pool yesterday, and it was 103 degrees. I was fine, man. It's definitely different than what you got up there in Detroit City, BG. I know it's kind of hit and miss up there, but it's been warm. Pretty good summer so far, weather-wise, hasn't it?
I'll take the heat over the snow any day, man.
Oh, bro,
any day.
I agree. That's what Dean was kind of alluding to. I did a post a couple days ago about it was Bugs Bunny like walking in the desert, and you can tell he's dying, and he goes, "I don't care. I still like summer better than winter."
Yeah, man.
So,
well,
but
winter's a good time to, if you like to go skiing, go play in the snow, but then you're done, that's a week.
Well,
I naturally, I have a love for winter because of hockey, and it's hockey season for me, for my kids, but I'm over it real quick, man. Real quick. Christmas gets over and I'm through. I'm through with it. I'm ready for spring, man.
Well, BG, we have that in common, being hockey fans, man. We talked about that a little bit off the air. I got a nephew, my boy Jason, who, man, I'd love to have on the show sometime. Dean, you probably even remember helping me out. We did a highlight reel for him years back. He's a pro hockey player, man, and God, he was drafted at like 18 years old. First player ever to be drafted in the first round out of the North American Hockey League. And he was drafted by the Dallas Stars. He was a goalie and bounced around with a few teams for a while. Played in Philly, Colorado, and St. Louis was where he really got most of his playing time. And literally dream come true. He played against his hometown favorite team, the Detroit Red Wings, couple of games. He lost the first one in St. Louis like at the last second of the game, and then beat the Wings in Detroit at the old Joe Louis in a shootout. And that's Dean and I worked on this highlight reel of those games, and not to get too far off track, y'all, but that was like truly not just a dream come true for Jason, but for the whole family, man. And so BG, man, big hockey fan, and shout out to Colorado. Won their first Stanley this year. I was kind of rooting for the Panthers, being a Florida guy, but I was happy to see Colorado get their first one. So anyway, yeah, man, you can't grow up in the Midwest or certainly a city like Detroit and not be a hockey fan. Dean, you come from the Boston area, man. The Bruins are huge up there. You much of a hockey fan, bro?
I wasn't, but all my college roommates were just all hockey.
Yeah. Oh man, hockey fans are fanatics. I will say that. I played 2 seasons when I was a younger man at the old Jack Adams Arena in Detroit City, and then I played at Garden City Arena as well for a year.
Finkel and Myers.
Yeah, but you know what happened with me, BG? I played, I was a much younger guy in the Pee Wee division. When I got to the Bantam division, all the other guys grew. I'm a short guy. I'm only like 5'7". I'll never forget, man. I got taken out in the corner one time, and I got that stick jammed in my gut. I had the wind knocked out of me so hard, I never thought I was going to breathe again. I said, okay, that's it, man. It's time for me to
and you like to keep your teeth, right?
Yeah. I've played in some pickup games here and there since then, because I can still skate. I'm a great skater, man. But yeah,
you gotta have a low center of gravity to play as a 5'7" guy, man. That's me too. I'm with you.
Yeah, them big boys, man, they'll tear you up. But anyways, well, hey, moving on, y'all. We got a little sidetracked on the weather and hockey and all. But, BG, as I explained to you a little bit before the show, and Dean, of course, as you know, always like to do a little bit of a recap of what this show is all about, what the purpose of this show is, and what that whole Dare Me name means. So if you would, just bear with me for about 5 minutes. We're going to do a deep dive interview with you, BG, in just a few, and then we're going to dig into the news. We got a couple of opioid epidemic news stories we're going to touch on. We're going to do a couple of current event stories, some cool recovery conventions going on, do some cool shout-outs, and BG, as I always like to say when we have guests on the show, even though we're going to get into our interview in just a little bit, if you want to chime in, jump in on any of these topics I'll be talking about in the news, current events and stuff, just jump right in there, man, because anybody who watches or listens regularly knows I can run my mouth, so don't be shy about just interrupting, cutting off, interjecting. That's why we love having guests on the show, man, so
yeah, man.
Right on. Well, anyways, with all that said, y'all, if you might be a viewer or listener to this show for the very first time, first of all, we want to welcome you to the Dare Me podcast. This is our 16th episode of this program. It just fucking blows my mind. I can hardly believe we've been doing it that long. The show is in the planning stages for a long time. And we're still, kind of, finding our way with it. This show truly has kind of taken on a life of its own in its own way. But we kind of got it down to a science, pretty good format now. And, doing all the things. So this program is really intended to try to help anyone who may be struggling with an opiate addiction or really any drug addiction that may come across our show in their journey of looking for information on how to get out of that madness, because that's what happened to me. I've got a long history with addiction, y'all, going back to when I was a teenager, I started partying as a young guy, like a lot of people I know as a teenager. I got clean for the first time, just shy of 25 years old. I walked into my first recovery meeting, as they say, stayed clean, believe it or not. I was able to stay clean for almost 17 years. I fell off, had a bad relapse. It lasted about 5 years. Landed in a treatment center, rehab, whatever you want to call it, detox, all that. And I got out, and that was a good trip for me. I stayed clean for another 6 years. And then I got hooked on opiate pain medication. Not to make excuses, I just telling my story. I broke my ankle. And I had to have a couple of surgeries, and sure enough, they gave me the Vicodins, and I knew better. I never should have been taking no fucking narcs with my history of addiction, but I did. I started taking them, and I got hooked, y'all, like a lot of people do. It happens to the best. And that lasted 9 freaking years. I went on a 9-year run. Didn't start off horrible, like it doesn't for most that start taking that shit. Made me feel great. But eventually, it turned on me. And at the end of it, y'all, I was snorting fucking heroin because I couldn't get the pills. And not to go into a whole drug log, y'all, but it started with the Vikes, and then the Perks, and then the Oxys, and the Dilaudid, and the Demerol, and any other fucking opiate I could get my hand on. And it truly is a miracle I ain't dead, not to compare war stories and say I was any better or any worse than anybody else, but I got some fucking war stories, you know. I've told some of them on this show, and there's more to come, you know, and it truly is a miracle I ain't dead, because all that shit's laced with fentanyl now, and of course trank. We're hearing so much more about trank, the street name for xylazine they're lacing that shit with now. And believe me, along the way, y'all, I came across some of them fake-ass pills that people are pressing in their fucking kitchen sink, and God only knows what all else they're missing in the shit, you know? So, anyway, I tried to kick for a long time before I was finally able to, y'all. I knew I had a fucking problem, and I was trying to kick for well over a couple years before I finally was able to. And in my journey and my efforts to do that, I was searching for information online because I didn't want to fucking go back into treatment. You know, I didn't want to admit that shit had me again to other people, and I really wanted to just kick on my own and move on and, you know, try to get my life back in order because it was a fucking mess at the time. And so in my search, man, I was looking on Google, YouTube, for all kinds of shit like, you know, how to get through opiate withdrawals and all that kind of stuff. And came across some good information that we've talked about on this show in previous episodes. If you go back and look through them, you'll see all kinds of stuff. I mean, we'll talk more about it as we go. But I didn't find anything like what we're doing with this program. And I thought back then that if I could ever fucking get clean again, man, I was going to do something like this. And then I did. You know, we started this program last March, right? In fact, it was coincidence. It didn't plan it this way, but we started this program I think it was a day or two after I had my 2 years clean again. My clean date's March 11th. And we started the program then and been going at it ever since. And so, with all that said, y'all, there's a lot more, obviously, to the story. But my hope truly is that someone like me who may be online, whether it's Google, YouTube, or anything else, just going in the search, looking for information, how to get through opiate withdrawals, how to kick a drug addiction, whatever it may be. You know, we kind of focus on opiates, but fuck, I was addicted to booze, coke back in the 80s and all that. So any type of addiction we talk about on this show, you know, the opiate thing is, God, I hate wearing these headphones, but I do wear them now when we have guests because otherwise I can't hear them. But anyways, yeah, man, so that's my hope, is somebody who may be going through it, wanting to get out of addiction, go through to the other side, might find our show, and that we might be able to provide some information, some hope, inspiration to them that they can get through it. Because if you're going through it, I promise you, you can get through it. Going through opiate withdrawals literally was the worst thing I've ever been through in my entire fucking life. And I got some stories, you know, but it was horrible. And you know, I think sometimes the level of intensity depends on how long you were doing it, how much of it you were doing. Again, not to sound like I was any better or worse than anybody else, but like I said, y'all, it was a 9-year run. If I did, God forbid, ever relapse and started doing the amount right out of the gate I was doing when I kicked, I'd fucking die in a heartbeat, because you do build up an immunity. That shit does turn on you, and you just got to start taking more and more and more and more and more just to feel normal, to get right, as they say. You never recapture that euphoric feeling or that high you get at the beginning. So anyway, that's the recap of the show. And then, of course, the purpose of the show and the name Dare Me. You know, it has a lot of different meanings because, as I often say on this show, man, coming out like this, it takes a lot of balls for someone to recover out loud, as they say. You know, and with myself, you know, I worked in the professional world, kind of corporate America, high-profile media guy in both Detroit and Orlando for, you know, most of my working life as an adult. And to come out like this and be so open and honest about it, you know, I don't have any fucking reservations about it now. Like I said, we're 16 episodes into this show. I haven't put it all out there, you know. But at first, yeah, a little self-conscious, a little reserved about doing it. And so that's kind of where that name, like Dare Me, fucking dare me to do this, you know? And as we say, even in the intro to the show, and I live by this, man, if this program can help even one person to come out of that addiction, then it's all worth it, man. I thought to myself, and this is the truth, man, I thought to myself when I was going through it and decided to do this show, I have no right to keep to myself what I went through and how I was somehow miraculously able to pull myself through it, living what I feel like is my best life now, and not share that as hope and inspiration to somebody else who may be wanting to get there too. So, yeah, that was kind of the initial idea with the name Dare Me, and then from there it just kind of grew into these little hashtags that Dean has across the top of the screen for us, you know. These are the topics we try to focus on. My favorite things to talk about anymore: drugs, addiction, recovery, enlightenment, music, and exercise. And those last two, man, we've spent a lot of time on this show talking about how music, man, oh my God, it can be such an instrumental tool for people when they're going through withdrawals and recovery, and certainly has been a big part of mine. But, you know, for those of y'all that know me and know I made a living with music for most of my adult life as a disc jockey, playing music on the radio, mobile DJ business, worked in more clubs and bars than I could possibly even remember playing music. And then, of course, fitness, you know, that became a big part of my recovery this time. And we've had that boy G Money on here talking to us about fitness, and we're going to talk more about that as we go. And so these are the topics. We talked about enlightenment and spirituality a few weeks ago. We had 3 guests on one show: that girl Melissa, that boy Steve, that boy Shebang. That was a great show. I highly recommend, if you came across this episode and haven't seen that, go back and look at it. You know, my favorite platform, we're on a lot of platforms with this program. We're live on like 4 different Facebook pages, a few different YouTube channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, all the things. My favorite one is the Dare Me Podcast YouTube channel, because I found most of the information that helped me on YouTube. So I always try to encourage people to go to that YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you would, and like and share, do all the things. But click on that video tab and you'll see all 16 episodes there. Well, of course, today's will be uploaded on there later, and they're all in chronological order. It's not real cluttered. It's all nice and clean. That's a good place to go watch all the shows. But, yeah, a few weeks ago, we did one. We called it Opiates and the God Thing, I think is what we called that. Well, we come up with these different names, and that was a real good one, talking about enlightenment. But with all that said, y'all, I am so excited about today's show and the conversation we're going to have with BG, because I kind of feel like we're getting back to what the real gist and nitty-gritty of this show is about. I love talking about music. I love talking about fitness. I love talking about enlightenment, and we're going to talk a little bit about that with BG. I also will say, man, this show is about talking about things like drugs and addiction and recovery and fucking war stories and shit, and like how bad did it get and what did you do to get out of it and what are you doing now to keep clean and all that stuff. And I just kind of have a feeling that's where we're probably going to end up going a little bit today in our conversation. So, BG, with all that said, man, that's my recap of the show. You still with me, bro?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, Dean, let's go get into the news. And like I said, BG, if you want to chime in with any comments or anything before we get into our full interview and we're talking about the news, current events, shout out, you just jump right in there. So let's see. We're going to bring up some slides now. And whoops, okay, me and Dean were both trying to do it at the same time.
Go ahead, you do it.
Okay, there we go. I'll add it. Okay, so this is our first story in the news, y'all, and we talked about this on the program. And by the way, I want to say hello. We got a few viewers that came on since I started my rant there a little bit ago, so I want to welcome all the people watching and listening right now. So we talked about this story a few weeks ago, I think about a month ago on the show, that, you know, the opiate and fentanyl crisis in San Francisco is just totally out of control, man. You go downtown And it's just right out in the open, people using out on the streets, dealing out on the streets. And so finally they decided to do a crackdown, you know, and it's almost heartbreaking because if you've ever been to San Francisco, you know what a rich, rich history the city has and how beautiful it is there. And, you know, obviously the homeless thing has a lot to do with it, but they decided to do this crackdown. And so California Highway Patrol start pulling all these people over and arresting people that they, you know, find drugs with and shit. And as this headline says, and we pull stories from a lot of different news outlets, you know, we're not biased toward any, you know, conservative or liberal leaning news outlets. We just look through the news. And this one we came across from ABC News. And as the headline says, the authorities have seized enough fentanyl in this crackdown in San Fran to kill the city's entire population 3 times over. And this story is just from like 2 weeks ago, y'all, because we did shows live from the road last week from Tahoe and the week before that from Vegas. So this is like the first show we're like really back to our regular format here in the studio. And then this is kind of the meat and potatoes of the article. I'm not going to sit here and read to y'all, but, you know, if you're watching, you can certainly scan through this article. But, you know, you can see there that, you know, this is like no fucking joke, y'all. They found enough to potentially kill 2.1 million people. And in another article, just kind of interesting, you know what I found, and you can find this online, information that out of the 45 people that they apparently arrested during this 1 week period, only one was actually a resident of San Francisco, a legal official resident of San Fran. So a lot of these people are either coming in and out of the city, transporting the shit, or, you know, people who are hooked to, you know, came from other areas because it's so readily available in San Fran. And so anyway, man, you know, I will say this, you like to see them making an effort to do something about it. I think the jury's still out on just how effective this is all going to be. This Tenderloin district is what they call it in San Fran, is where it's most rampant. And unfortunately, as we know, a lot of times when they do these crackdowns, it's almost like stepping on an anthill. It doesn't always really make a big difference. It just makes them go to a different area. And they are trying to chase them out of Tenderloin in the downtown area. Let's just hope they don't start popping up other places and that it really does make a difference. But, you know, you got to do something. So I'm just kind of glad to see that. Now, here's an interesting story that kind of piggybacks off of that. And this one we found in the LA Times. Even though they're doing this crackdown in San Fran, they do these studies. And during the month of May, when it first started, they found that they had more fentanyl ODs in San Fran than ever before, the most on record for a month-long period in the month of May. Now, obviously, we just finished the month of June, so hopefully, you know, what they're doing over there trying to crack down may cut down on some of the ODs. But I think this article was interesting because it shows certainly there was something needed. You know, they always like to kind of seems like correlate the homeless problem with the drug use problem, and I get the connection there. That's like a file photo, it says, from back in February of 2022 in that Tenderloin district I mentioned. I just thought it was important to mention that this problem ain't just with the homeless, y'all, okay? I wasn't fucking homeless, and I became hopelessly addicted to opiates. So, you know, yeah, there's this correlation with homelessness and drug use, and certainly that's a big part of it in this area of San Fran. But let's not fool ourselves into thinking that this problem is just restricted to, you know, street people, hood rats, the ghetto, whatever, the homeless, man. This fucking problem is rampant throughout the business world, affects families all across the country and everything else, you know. Yeah, it's bad in this area in San Fran, but again, let's not fool ourselves into thinking it's only affecting street people, as they say. So anyway, just thought we'd recap that story, y'all. We'll keep our fingers on the pulse of it, and I'm sure we'll have more updates on episodes to come. Now we're going to jump all the way across the country, BG, and I'll be curious to hear your input on this one because this is a story we came across just a couple days ago. They ran this one on June 27th, so it was literally just, like 5 days ago, that in Detroit City, My hometown, as many y'all know, where I lived the first 30 years of my life, and go back to visit all the time because all my family's there and a lot of my friends and whatnot. But anyway, they started this new mobile intervention program, these units going out on the streets of Detroit to help treat opioid addiction. And, it is being conducted by this group who, quite honestly, I don't know a lot about. I just didn't have a lot of time before we did this show to do research on them, but they're called Quality Behavioral Health in Detroit. And we've actually got a video, a news story we're going to show in just a moment here. And it's only about 2 minutes long, so hang with us. And then afterwards, we'll talk about it. And BG, I'd be real curious to hear your input on what you think about this program. Whoops, we want to back up there, Dean, about that. And before we show the video, I just want to say hi to our people in the chat room. I see Lori has joined us on the show. She said, sorry for being late. Hey, you're never late, Lori. We're glad to have you. Kelly's on there. And Kelly's doing a shout out to Shebang, but I'm not seeing Shebang in the chat room. But anyway, I think she might have been BG. She might have thought you were Shebang, BG. But anyways, welcome to Lori and Kelly in the chat room. And I see we got a half dozen viewers watching as well. So we want to welcome everyone that's joined in with the program today. So anyways, this story here is really a kind of it's a unique and different approach to trying to tackle this opioid problem. And let's go ahead and watch the video. You got that ready, Dean? Go ahead and play it.
Here we go.
With the opioid epidemic raging across the country, a new program here at home is aiming to help treat the addiction by bringing treatment options right to those in need, especially in underserved communities. Argino Vici has the details near East Grand Boulevard and Mount Elliott on Detroit's west side.
Well, this is a new pilot program, and these mobile intervention buses will be hitting the streets in just a few weeks. Now, with the opioid epidemic increasing, getting worse every single day, the company behind it hopes that services like this can become more common.
I think it has a huge potential.
Dr. Sherry Aliz is heading up a new pilot program, recently approved by the DEA and the state of Michigan, that could have a huge impact on opioid abuse treatment options for underserved communities.
A lot of our clients are those that have no access to treatment facilities.
Dr. Aliz is talking about this fleet of custom-built specialty buses designed to target underserved communities like homeless shelters, nursing homes, correctional facilities, and neighborhoods with little to no options. The mobile units are scheduled to be rolled out in just a few weeks and will provide full treatment services.
So some of these buses will be for group therapies. Some of these buses will be registration. Some of these buses will be for counselors and doctors, and the other buses will be for methadone dispensing.
Naveed Syed is the CEO of Quality Behavioral Health in Detroit and says he's operated this center for nearly 3 decades. And the addition of these mobile units are exactly what the community needs to help fight the opioid epidemic.
A lot of people are losing their lives and killing themselves by overdosing. So this is the time where we want to help, and I'm really happy that I can do something.
Saeed says when the program launches in just a few weeks, there will be 2 buses in Detroit, 1 in Inkster and 1 in Canton. And he's hopeful that number will increase soon after launching.
After this pilot is done, we will be able to see how successful this runs, and then we will expand this.
Dr. Aliz is very optimistic about this mobile intervention pilot program.
It's going to do so good to the community.
In Detroit, Gino Vici, CBS News, Detroit.
There you go, everyone. So definitely a unique and different approach to this whole opioid epidemic. And I was glad to hear, they're not doing it just in Detroit, but he mentioned Inkster, Canton, and, depending on how well it goes, expanding it to other areas and cities as well. So, BG, being that you're right there in Detroit City, what do you think about that program?
Yeah, man, I've known QBH has been around for a long time. My best friend I've brought there a couple times when he was alive, man. And I think it's good to get things out there, get it more in the Inkster as well, man. Inkster is just as bad as Detroit, if not worse in some areas nowadays. Yeah, I know right where that's at. It's a little little apartment complex over there. But yeah, man, anything that can get it out there more, it's obviously better.
Right on, right on. Well, once again, I'm being told that maybe I need to turn my mic up a little bit by Lori, who is incidentally celebrating 18 months clean today. We want to send a shout out to Lori in the chat room, one of our regular viewers and listeners. On her 18 months today. That's huge, Lori. Congratulations to you. I hope you're going to a meeting or maybe already did to pick up your 18-month key tag or chip or whatever. But shout out to Lori. So, yeah, I'd turn my mic up just a little bit there, Dean, just so you know. Anyway, yeah, well, BG, I really appreciate your input on that. And I just thought it was, a cool story that we'd show. I don't think it's a result of the opioid settlement that these programs we just talked about are going on. The huge settlement with Purdue Pharma and the others that literally were billions of dollars. I don't think they put that money to work in our communities yet. I think in California, certainly that was, an effort by the governor and the government and the authorities to try to crack down on it. And I'm not sure, like I said, I didn't really get to look into quality behavioral programs, background and how they're funded and stuff like that. I just didn't get the time to do it before today's show. What I will say is I'm just glad to see there's these things going on out there because, you mentioned it briefly, BG, and we'll talk about it in a moment, about one of your boys dying. And at the end of the day, that's what this is all about, is trying to save lives, y'all. And, obviously some of the stuff that we've been doing for literally decades, trying to, approach this drug problem, quite frankly, I guess is the best way to say it. They don't always work that great. And so I like to see these outside of the box, different kinds of things like the story we just watched. So anyway, that's it on the news for now, y'all. We try to hit on at least a couple of stories each week. In the news, and we keep our fingers on the pulse of it, and you can count on us here at the Dare Me podcast to stay on top of anything that we feel like, should be talked about. So let's go into some current events, y'all, because I can tell you, man, I was feeling a little homesick for Orlando this weekend because there's an event going on. And I'm looking for our slides here. Let me bring them back up in a second here. Actually, it just wrapped up today in Orlando. And what it is the annual, here, let me bring it up. There it is, the annual Florida Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous, or what is commonly referred to the acronym of FRICNA. And I just want to put this out there. I try to say it every week, y'all. I ain't no representative of NAAA, fucking A, or any other 12-step group. I'm just another addict, another guy trying to stay clean on a daily basis, y'all. Ain't trying to break no damn traditions for all our purists and NA gurus out there. I love y'all. Doesn't mean I can't fucking talk about these programs, and we damn sure do on this show. And so, man, we want to get the information out there. And this is all common knowledge information. It ain't like I'm sharing anything that's supposed to be confidential. It's all out there on the internet and social media and every other damn thing. And so anyway, they had the annual Florida Regional Convention, and I got to confess, y'all, I'm not good at Roman numerals, and I don't know which one this was. XLI, I think it's like 40 something, whatever the hell it is. But they do this thing every year, 4th of July weekend. And with the 4th falling in the middle of the week this year, it's kind of weird, the idea whether they did it this weekend or next weekend. But anyway, you can see the theme for it this year was surviving against all odds. And
Glenn,
usually,
XLI is a Roman numeral for 41.
41. Thank you, Dean. Okay. And I got to ask, now, did you know that, or did you just look it up real quick? Tell the truth, Dean. I'm kidding you, man.
No comment.
Yeah, no comment. but anyway, as I know you're aware, BG, these NA conventions, man, oh my God, they're so powerful, literally. And FRCNA's a big one. People come from not just around the country, but literally around the world to attend these things. And there's, for some of them, literally thousands of people, and that's certainly the case with FRCNA. And it's a few days long. They have all kinds of different meetings going on, and speakers and a lot of other cool stuff. They have pool parties, there's a banquet, and then, of course, the highlight of every convention I've ever been to, recovery convention, is when they do the countdown. It's the clean time countdown, or at AA, the sobriety countdown. And they started however many years and then go all the way down to literally like who's here today who may have one day clean. And so it's just so powerful, and you really ride the wave of that energy and that vibe for weeks after the convention. And I need to mention something. I put a post on social media yesterday that I was feeling homesick, and that, I'm paraphrasing, in spirit, I'm standing up for 2 years clean again. And I had all these people like comment on my post, hey, congratulations, good for you, and all this stuff. And I thought, oh my God, these fucking people are going to think that this is my clean date. When I just put a post out last March, I did this like crazy video where I really got overexcited, about getting my 2 years. And so I thought anybody who's paying attention is like, well, wait a minute, I thought he just had his 2 years. But so I was just kind of doing a, acknowledgement that had I been at the FRCNA convention last night, when they called 2 years, that's when I would have stood up, because I'm between 2 and 3. So anyways, shout out to all my Orlando and Central Florida friends, and anybody else who would have attended FRCNA. That's the banner, and this is a name tag friend of mine posted. They give you these lanyards to wear, and I kind of, edited out her name, but I put, the name tag here. And so, yeah, man, that I've been to a lot of NA conventions over the years, y'all. As I've shared on this program, I first walked into NA as a young man, just shy of 25. I'm fucking 61 years old now, so that's a lot of NA conventions over that time. And both clean and using, and clean and using and clean. Never thought in a million fucking years I would ever go to a meeting, let alone an NA convention, using. But as I've said on previous episodes of this show, thank God for the tradition that the only requirement for membership in any 12-step program is a desire to stop using, and that you are a member when you fucking say you are. Nobody else can decide that but you. And, oh, there's Shebang. He's in the chat room now, live from Detroit City, baby. Hey, Shebang, welcome to the program. So, anyways, yeah, man, I've been to a lot of conventions over the years, but more FRCNAs than any other one. And so it just wasn't in the cards for me to go to FRCNA this year, but was definitely there in spirit. And now we're going to talk about this one. Next weekend, 6th through the 9th, is what we call the MRCNA convention. That's the acronym for Michigan Regional Convention of Narcotics Anonymous. This will be the 37th one there. And like I said, with the 4th being in the middle of the week, it turned out Florida did it the weekend before the 4th. Michigan's doing it the weekend after. But usually they're the same weekend because they always do the 4th. But this one's in Grand Rapids, and there's just some information about it. That countdown, I pulled this photo yesterday, so it's less than that amount away. But this next picture is some registration information. You could actually scan that barcode and do all the things if you wanted to right from our screen. But that one is a great convention, too. In fact, the MRCNA convention is the very first NA convention I ever went to way back July of 1987. Holy fucking cow. You weren't even alive yet back then, were you, VG?
91.
Yeah, bro. So, but hey, man, that's it's just so fucking cool having you on the show today. And so, anyway, I got to tell this story, and then we're going to jump into, talking to you in a deep dive here real quick. You and I talked about this off the air real quick, and Shebang, I see you're in the chat. You'll remember this, too. It was exactly 1 year ago today that we were at that Michigan convention in Grand Rapids, because they did it in Grand Rapids last year. And Shebang and I talked about this on this show one time, BG. I don't think you're aware. We were joking about it. Of course, I had seen you at recovery meetings around town while I was back up in Detroit kicking and all, but it was the first time we really got a chance to sit down, kind of get to know each other. You and I and Shebang and Dan went out to eat at this Indian restaurant. And you guys were saying you never had Indian food before. And I wasn't even really that hungry, but I was like, oh, hell no, we got to get some food. And Shebang was like, God damn, bro, you ordered one of everything on the fucking menu, And we had a feast, man. And, I just remember that day like it was yesterday. And it was actually, it's so bizarre how my life goes, man. Here you are on the show today. And we certainly didn't plan it this way. But I was thinking about it this afternoon, and I go, oh, my God, that was fucking 1 year ago to the day. Who would have thought last year when we were sitting down for that meal that we'd be here 1 year ago to the day doing this podcast? It's fucking bizarre, I think,
Completely. Everything's unpredictable, man,
yeah.
for sure.
Well, me and Shebang were joking because if you remember that day, I'm so flexible, man, because I work out, I go to yoga all the time, and I was sitting like cross-legged, crisscross applesauce in my chair, and you looked at me and you go, dude, I'm paraphrasing, but it was kind of like, at your age, how the fuck are you even able to sit like that? And I said, man, just lots of yoga, bro. And you were like, man, I need to get involved. But so I wanted to ask you, did you ever get involved with yoga? Do you do any at all, or stretching?
As far, not as far as the the Western sense of the word. I haven't done any like physical yoga. No, I need to make some time for that. But with my kids and everything else, man, I'm so busy with sports. But
I get
but
it,
no,
bro.
man, yeah. It's funny because I do sit in meditation, and I can sit. I can't sit all the way into it like you do, but I can not yet, no. But even just sitting regular like cross-legged style, man, I get about a minute and a half before I start my body starts screaming, man, I gotta move position. So yeah, it's definitely a wake up. And I gotta do some stretching, man.
Yeah, well, hey, you're still a young man, so yeah, I get it, but it takes a little while to do it, you know what I mean? And I wasn't always like that, believe me. I was serious when I told you, a lot of yoga, a lot of stretching, and I mentioned this on this program a couple times, BG. I remember when I first started doing yoga, I was a little self-conscious about it, especially with some of my homeboys from the hood and shit. Like, man, what's this motherfucker, pussy-ass motherfucker doing yoga, And then I start reading about it and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, God, man, guys like fucking Kobe, when he was still alive, he did yoga and swore by it. LeBron still does yoga on the regular. And I thought, fuck, if it's good enough for Kobe and LeBron, I can fucking do it too, And I can honestly say it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me for physically, like my lower back and my extremities, and like we talked about, just becoming more flexible and stretching, but also mentally and spiritually, man. A lot of meditation involved with yoga, and it really led me into digging deeper into enlightenment and Hinduism and things like that, man, that, we'll talk a little bit about on the program, but I couldn't resist just mentioning that story, man, that I just think it's kind of bizarre that 1 year ago today, it could be almost to the hour that, here me, you, Dan, and Shebang were having dinner together, and 1 year later to the day, we're here on the show. So anyways, though, going back to those slides, bring them up there. A couple of current events. FRCNA convention just wrapped up today, and shout out to everybody there that was at that thing. I saw a lot of pictures online that people were posting. Shout out to a couple of my friends, Guy, Biff. Oh my God, talk about NA royalty, as we say. Just a lot of people were there, man, that I was feeling kind of homesick. So, and I'm sure I'll be feeling that way next weekend with the FRCNA convention going on, because like I said, it just wasn't in the cards for me to go to those this year. I'm still hoping and planning on going to the South Florida convention in August. We'll talk a little bit more about that one maybe next week. And then, BG, I'll be up in Detroit visiting that last week, I think it is, of August. So hope to see you while I'm up there at that time. So anyway, we want to do some shout outs now, y'all. Moving on from the news and current events. And today is Nikki's 22nd year anniversary of sobriety. And by the way, Kelly's in the chat. I want to thank her for sending me this picture yesterday. I appreciate that, Kelly. I saw some stuff online about it too, but I pulled this picture you sent me. There's that boy Nikki Six from Motley Crue, who's been living clean and sober now for 22 motherfucking years, man. How cool is that? And if you're interested, this is from his Insta page, but if you go to his Facebook page, just type in Nikki Six, he wrote a really long, just kind of message to people who are, living clean and sober or trying to get there, that was very inspirational. And I never met the man. I wish I did. Maybe I will someday. Hey, Nikki, have you ever seen us, bro? Come on the podcast, man. We'll talk about living clean. But we want to do congrats and shout out to Nikki Six on his 22nd year of sobriety. I also want to do a shout out to one of my favorite people to talk about on this show, that boy Kasky. Here's another fucking bizarre story, and we do have, I see Shebang still in the chat room. He'll remember this story. It was 1 year ago to the day yesterday that Kasky released this album called This Isn't Even My Final Form, which is a very recovery-oriented album, y'all. And here's kind of the bizarre story. BG, I think me and Shebang may have told you this story before, but, I've been a big Kasky fan for a long time. It's a long story that I won't get into again right now, but I've been a big fan for years, He's a guy that's, over 30 years old now, but he's been doing music since he was a teenager. He was signed to, like, Birdman at, I think, 15 or 16, and he's just this amazing artist that I love to death. And he and I'm not, saying anything that would be in confidence because he shared all this information openly. He developed a drug problem and he put all his vices down and he's living clean now. And this album was all about part of his journey and an inspiration to people like myself, who going through that journey as well. So anyway, I knew he was putting this album out, but I had no freaking idea what it was going to be about or anything like that. I just happened to know that it was dropping that day, which happened to be 1 year ago yesterday. And Shebang will remember this. Me and him were driving up I-96, going to Grand Rapids to go to that Michigan NA convention. And we're just bullshitting and stuff. And I said, hey, man, listen, that boy Kasky dropped a new album today. Why don't we pop some on and listen to some of it? And he's like, hell yeah, put that shit on, bro. So we did. We started bumping it. And we're listening to this tune, Rock Bottom. And then this one, Sinner Like Me. And then even he's got Heaven Seems So Far Away. And we're just like, oh, my God, I can't fucking believe it. It's all recovery stuff, man. And we were just like, we just thought it was really bizarre that here we are on our way to a fucking NA convention together, we're both with a couple of years clean, still trying to find our way and all that, going there to look for inspiration and all that other stuff. And we put on this boy Kasky, who, when I first started listening to him, man, I was using, and he was too. And a lot of his music from back in them days glorify using and shit, And now, here we are living clean. He's living clean too. We just popped this shit on, and by chance, man, turns out he's rapping and singing all about recovery. And so anyway, just want to send a shout out. If you see this, Kasky, man, we love you to death. Really looking forward to hopefully having you on the show one day, because he said he'd be on the show. Me and Shebang, without getting into a long story, we've met him. I've met him a few times, and we went to this big summit he put on last year with that boy Anonymous, the producer, and a lot of other guys we met out there. So we definitely wanted to send a shout out to Kasky, and congrats, bro, on the 1 year anniversary of the release of this amazing piece of work. This Isn't Even My Final Form. And a lot of new stuff coming out from Caskey lately. He's been dropping some freestyles the last couple Fridays in a row. Him and Anonymous about to put out this release, Cadillac Music. Really looking forward to hearing and seeing that. And then if you're interested, here's a post that he put out there on his social media, y'all. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but he talks about this. So if that caught your interest, I highly encourage you to go and check out either his Facebook or his Insta and read about it. You know, you can see just real quick there where he talks about how he was basically homeless, man. Such a talented artist, and how he went on this journey and turned his life around. And that fucking album went to #1, by the way. So anyway, shout out to that boy Caskey. And now we're going to do another shout out to next week's guest on the program. This is an old friend and colleague of mine, that boy Mike Woods. And hey, Mike, I hope you're watching or listening today, man. We talked on the phone for a long time. God, was it yesterday or the day before? And Mike had some previous commitments going on. He wasn't quite sure, when he'd have free time. But it looks like we're going to have him on next week. And you can see on the left, man, there he is. He's a talented performer, rock and roll guy, man, as you're going to see in a couple pictures and a video clip we're going to play. I've known Mike for it's been probably about 32 years. I met him shortly after I moved to Orlando. And, we were never like really tight buddies, like we hung out on the weekends or anything, but used to see him around the rooms all the time. And he used to come to a lot of the dances I was a DJ at and shit like that. So we definitely knew each other and who each other was. We'd always kind of nod in acknowledgement or whatever and follow each other on social media now. And he just recently cut his hair, as you can see in that picture on the right, man. I actually think it looks pretty good. Now, see, I wouldn't look good shaving my damn head. My head is shaped so weird. But anyway. So moving on, Mike is kind of a one-man band. The guy is such a talented guitar player, and he's really into that heavy metal stuff, y'all. And so anyway, his music that he puts out there is under this name Cult of the Storm, and you can see all this shit on all the social media platforms. He's out there on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, you get it. And he actually just released something just yesterday. We're going to play a short clip of in here in just a little bit. But he's got a lot of other music out there too, y'all, that I highly encourage you to listen to. Before we play the clip, though, I couldn't help but do a little name dropping, okay? So here's Mike with his cool-looking son, Connell. I think I'm pronouncing it correctly. Connell, I think it is. But that boy in the middle is Will Hunt, if he looks familiar to you. One of the most amazing rock and roll drummers out there from Evanescence, plays drums for Evanescence. And Mike and Will went to high school together. And they've remained friends over the years. And this is Mike at one of the Evanescence shows with his son. And they're, looks like they're backstage here or whatever. And they got a picture of themselves there. And that's a great, cool pic. But this next one, y'all, oh my God, there he is with my girl. Oh God, I just fucking love Amy Lee. That's Amy Lee there between Mike and his son. And if you don't know who Amy Lee is, I feel sorry for you. You ought to go check her out. Lead singer for Evanescence. And of course, Amy's done a lot of cool solo shit. Oh my God, Never Call Me When You're Sober. And of course, man, going back to when A.B. was with Sean from Seether, and they did that tune Lonesome. Oh, my God. And that video, man, I just love her. She is truly a rock chick and cool as hell. And Mike was telling me she's just the coolest, nicest, humblest person. He was actually talking to Emma. The other girl is Emma, who's the bass player for Sick Puppies. And he said they were just sitting there bullshit with Emma, and that Amy just came skipping up and said, "Hey, guys, what's going on?" And so they got this picture. But I just think it's so fucking cool that, Mike's buddies with, Will and Amy Lee and Emma. And so I had to show those. Like I said, I like the name drop on this show, man, So anyway, Mike's going to be on the show with us. We're keeping our fingers crossed. It looks like it's probably about 99% sure next week. And in addition to his music and everything, y'all, he's got an amazing story. and we'll see how much of it he chooses to share with us next week. But Mike is just one cool-ass guy, y'all, so we're really hoping to have him on next week. So shout out, Mike, and we'll talk to you soon, bro. Okay, so let me back up. I wasn't supposed to show that slide yet. Mike did a song, like I said, that was just released yesterday, and you know, we're always reluctant to play music on the show, and you know, part of the reason for that, Dean and I have had long conversations about it, is we don't want our show to get flagged for copyright infringement. And so, like, even with Kasky and his stuff, you know, he's a huge international artist. You know, I mean, the dude is just like all over the world. So if we were to play a Kasky tune or even a clip from it, you know, we might get flagged, and then all of a sudden our shit don't come up in the algorithms or the searches on YouTube and the others. So we try not to play anything, but we've done some stuff like we played Boxmaster stuff when I went to see Billy Bob Thornton and his group a few weeks ago, but that was live. And so, Dean, you were saying if it's a live thing, it's not as much. And then, of course, you know, with Mike, you know, with all respect, Mike's an awesome artist. You know, he's not like at the level of like Billy Bob Thornton or Kasky, you know, and he just dropped this tune yesterday. It is out there on Spotify and SoundCloud and YouTube, and I encourage you to go listen to it. But we're going to go ahead and play like a 30-second clip from it. We don't think we'll get flagged. You know, Dean's giving me the look like, oh no, Glenn, but you know, we just want to give y'all a taste of it. You know, I don't want to play the whole song, and then we'll talk more about it. We'll see. Maybe next week we might even be able to do a little bit more of Mike stuff. And then after we do this, we're going to jump into our interview with BG. And BG, I appreciate you hanging tough with us, man. Being so patient for this first part of the show as we went through the news, the current events, the shout outs, and all that other stuff. And then we're going to spend the rest of the half of the show talking with you, bro. So anyway, let's give a little listen to Mike's brand new song that he just released yesterday. Go ahead, Dean. Let's play this clip. Oh, just kidding, y'all. So, yeah, you get the idea, man. I mean, I just want to play a little clip. You get it, man. Mike, first of all, he's a talented guitar player, man. And, you know, the dude posts stuff about, you know, sometimes, you know, as some of y'all know who follow my stuff, you know, I do music, and I've been working in auto tune and working on music production with shebang and all that stuff, and I get self-conscious about my singing sometimes, you know. And Mike posted some stuff about that too, but man, he's definitely got the pipes for that kind of music and that kind of singing. And Dean, I appreciate you playing that clip. And so anyway, we're hoping to have Mike on the show next week, y'all. Encourage you to tune in. Like I said, not just to talk to him about his music and stuff, but about his journey as well, which is an amazing story. And speaking of journeys, just want to thank you again, BG, for hanging tough with us through all of that and the comments and input that you shared with us along the way. But right now, man, we want to jump in and take a deep dive, as we say, into, you know, your story a little bit. You know, I'll say this as an intro to you, BG. You know, I've learned doing this show, I say on here a lot, it's a lot of work putting this program on. It really is. I mean, literally almost like a full-time job that I could hire a full-time assistant to help me with that I'm actually kind of working on. But where I'm going with that is some of the guests we have are very, how shall I say, I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, almost like anal retentive, you know. They're so structured and organized, and they'll want to do a rehearsal ahead of time and have a script, and I just have to tell them, no, man, we can't do it like that, bro. It'll come across way too stilted and phony. I just want us to have a conversation, shoot from the hip. I do have an outline I use each week just to kind of keep me going. That's just because my memory ain't what it used to be. And I get it. Some people just want to be more in their comfort zone and have that little bit of structure, and that's fine. No problem with that at all. I get that. I will also say I love it when I have a guest like you. And we had that boy Steve on and Melissa a couple weeks ago. They were the same way. They were like, bro, just do it, man. Just lead me wherever you want to go. Nothing's off limits. Let's just talk like we're two guys hanging out having a conversation. And so I just want to say I appreciate that, BG. So we talked a little bit off the air before we really got started today about I think that our viewers and listeners would love to hear your story, like what happened, what you did about it, and what you're doing now. Is that a good way to maybe introduce you here onto this topic?
Yeah, man. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, have at it, man. Tell us what happened, what you did, and what you're doing now about it when it comes to this whole topic of drugs and addiction and recovery and everything else.
Yeah, man. Just like anybody else, I could go into the using, but we've all used, that's what it all really, we all have that in common, right? But the main thing, right, is why we were using, right? Why I was using. I'll speak for myself, and I started, I was using with my dad at a real young age, and he used to instill in me, man, like he's no longer with us, but he used to instill in me once when I would try to get clean or even mention it, he'd say, you might go a week, you might go a year, but you'll always be back. He'd say, once a smoker, always a smoker. That was something that he always said, man. And I'm glad that I made it through, and I can prove that that's not the case.
Well, if I may, I don't mean to interrupt you, BG, but it just occurred to me, I meant as I introduced you to mention, and you told me it was okay to go this way, that in addition to being, a recovery advocate and enthusiast, you're a recovering person. You're coming up on 3 years clean in just a couple of months. September 1st will be your 3-year clean date anniversary. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think that's important to mention. So anyway, yeah.
Yeah, man. And, like I was saying, that we all have in common, but I think over here on this side of the world, man, and in this day and age, the problem's much, I don't want to say deeper, but it's, nobody's taught to look inward, man, and nobody looks inward for anything. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm just speaking as a nation, and on this side of the world and the time that we're in, everything's geared towards gaining and this and that and outward, right? And it's always the next and the bigger thing, and it's all me, and that's why the program, in relation to that, it says the center of it, is my complete and total self-centeredness. That's where all my suffering comes from. And I think the program, just like any other religion, or any other spiritual text or anything, it's all geared from the same thing, right? It's all principle, and it's all just basic understanding of seeing life for exactly what it is without any of those outside things, and it's the same thing with, that's why meditation is so big, being able to sit in silence. I used to hate being silent and being bored, I would call it. I mean, I didn't even realize that was what was going on, but I hated it, man. I constantly needed a big distraction to keep me from just being with myself,
Right.
And that's what keeps the world going around, man. But ultimately, it's everybody's suffering, man. And I say this at tables all the time. I'm grateful that I was introduced to drugs, man, and I'm grateful I survived, but I'm grateful that I found this program to find a way out of it, because man, the majority of people alive that didn't get crippled by using, that didn't bring them to their knees and force them to find a new way to live, they're still out there just looking for one more of something. But it's not going to cause them enough pain and enough suffering to realize that there's a different way to live.
BG, if I may, I'd like to interject right there because I'm so glad you explained that the way you did. And I'd just like to kind of piggyback and maybe paraphrase off that a little bit. I have an old friend of mine who I think he follows our stuff from time to time because he'll chime in. That boy, Louie. From Detroit, who lives in Orlando now, old timer, and I've mentioned him on the show before. We've had deep conversations. He's been clean a long time, certainly been a mentor of mine. And we've talked from time to time about exactly what you were just alluding to, that once you take the dope away, what are you recovering from? What are you recovering from? And you made a statement that, for anybody who maybe isn't, involved in recovery or ever become addicted to dope might not understand. And the statement you made was you're grateful that you had this challenge with drug addiction because it brought you to the place you're at now that had you not made it through that alive, you wouldn't even understand now. And so, and again, I'm kind of paraphrasing how you said it, but as you know in the program, a lot of times we say, man, with all respect to all our viewers and listeners who aren't, program people, we will say, man, these fucking normies, goddamn, they need a fucking program, man. I'm out here working, as my sponsor, Shay, says, man, I'm out here working steps on these fucking normies and they don't even know it, because you're right, bro. People are going through shit in life, all day, every day, whether they're hooked on dope or booze or whatever or not. Those of us who survived that active addiction and are now actively trying to work a 12-step program, a Dharma program, whatever program it might be, are blessed because now we have something to work on. As Louis says, what are we recovering from? Ordinarily, there's a lot more to it than just taking the dope away. Then you got to start the real work of working on some of the issues there. Is that a good way to kind of paraphrase what you were alluding to?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, speaking strictly from the program, the drugs you got to take the drugs away just to have a chance
That's a symptom.
At recovery.
Yeah,
it's the very beginning, it's the very beginning of the whole program is to put the drugs down. It's just absolutely necessary because if I pick drugs up, I'm completely consumed with self and ahead of time. There is no presence, there is no there's no inward understanding of anything. It's just completely self-centered and geared towards one more, and that's why the suffering is so great. The higher the degree of self-centeredness, the higher the degree of suffering, and it took me I don't want to say a long time, but it took me the right time and place and people to put that into perspective for me to have a simple understanding of what was actually going on. And it really is, it's a key word. It's simple. It's so simple that I overlooked it for a very long time.
How's that old saying around the 12-step or recovery programs? It's a very simple program for complicated people. We tend to overcomplicate it,
It's the first word in the basic text. Simplicity.
Yeah. Well, with that in mind, BG, let me ask you this, because when we were kind of messaging back and forth, you had mentioned to me that you wanted to talk about drugs, addiction, recovery, and you had a word in there that definitely caught my attention. You mentioned enlightenment, spirituality as well, which we'll talk about. There was one key word that definitely caught my attention, and we talked briefly about it, and that word was presence. Tell me what you meant by that. I think our viewers and listeners, and myself included, would be curious to hear what you meant by that.
Well, that also, spins off of like what I was just saying. It was so simple that I missed it, and if you would have told me anything about any of this when I was wrapped up in my using, it just wouldn't have made any sense. There's no way, because it would have been against my agenda. I needed a problem, but that was all geared away from my constant need for myself, and ahead of time worried about, you know, the future, the past, whatever. I said this when I picked up like a year clean. I've only been present for about 5 months in my entire life, you know, outside of being a toddler, you know, because I see it in my kids all the time. You see the change start gradually happening. You know, you look at a toddler and they're happy, joyous, free. They're not worried about tomorrow. They're not worried about what happened yesterday. You bring up what they're going to do tomorrow. If you ask a toddler what they're going to do tomorrow, they'll look at you like you're absolutely crazy.
Yeah, right.
You know, but something happens along the line where we become completely obsessed with, you know what I mean, where this is all going and what am I going to do and what is this going to become? And it completely it completely overtook my sense of being just present for my life, you know? And that's kind of like what I touched on earlier. You know, we're geared towards that. We don't even know it. You know, it's so deep into the system, you know, for lack of a better term, that everything's about status and everything's about what we're going to become. You know, you go to even the way school is set up, right? You get in kindergarten, it's like you got this happy, joyous, and free toddler running around enjoying life, not caring about anything. You know, when he's dirty, he's dirty. When he, you know what I mean, he doesn't care about any of it. And then something happens along the line where we get in the school system, right? And it's like you're in kindergarten and you can't wait to get into first grade. And you get into first grade and you can't wait to get into second grade. And then you can't wait to get out of that and get into the junior high with the bigger kids, right? And it's always this gear up.
And then when you get older, you wish you were younger again, but that you know what you knew.
It's just always ahead, and it's never now. It's never now. It's always somewhere other than here, you know?
You know what, bro? I don't mean to interrupt, but I got to mention this because I don't want to forget it. My very first sponsor in the program, going back a long time, Chester, that boy Chester Myers, may he rest in peace. He's no longer with us, you know, but he taught me so much stuff, man, that I've remembered all these years. And I'm sure he learned it around the rooms from someone else and just, as we say, you know, passed it on to me. But he used to say something you just alluded to, because I was stressing about the future and so fucked up about shit that happened in the past, you know, in my mind. I was just so miserable. And he said, Glenn, he goes, you got to remember, if you have 1 foot in tomorrow and 1 foot in yesterday, you're shitting all over today. When really all we have is today. What's here, what's right now, you know, or how's that old saying go? You know, yesterday's a canceled check, tomorrow's a promissory note, but today is cash money in the hand, you know. So I totally get what you're talking about, bro. You know, and that's where I think those two program sayings come, you know, AA is more, you know, one day at a time. NA, we have just for today, you know, and that's it, man. It's like we stress so much about all the fucked up shit that happens in the past that's over, that can't, you know, nothing be done to change. And then we're all stressed out about, oh God, what's going to happen? We get anxiety about tomorrow, and tomorrow may never come. And, you know, it's been a challenge for me to get to the place you're talking about. And even just going back to, we talked briefly about yoga and meditation. That has helped me more than I could possibly describe with trying. I'm not no expert and perfect at doing it. I get better at it, I think, all the time, the more I practice it, because I do have to practice, is staying in the moment. Just like this moment we're having right here, right now on this program, BG. It don't get no better than this. This is it, right this moment. So I totally dig what you said, man. Yeah.
It's all we're ever going to have. Is the moment, you know, and that's really that's all of it, right? It's just, that's a fact, you know. The fact is that's the only place we can be. It's just, can we stay aware of it, you know? And you said that you struggle to get to that point too. It's not a point that like anybody is at, right? Because when I lose it, I feel the suffering from it, right?
Yeah.
And then I remind myself that this is the reality, you know. So if I look any time I can pay attention to my feelings today, due to, you know, that's what the steps in the program are trying to get people, not trying to get people to, but to awaken to in themselves, right? I don't have to react to any feelings that I have now. You know, I respond. I respond to things, you know, because seeing that I'm just a consciousness, right? I have that ability. I'm not just reactive, you know, and that's the compulsive part of the disease, you know, as the literature puts it. You know, if I put the compulsive part down, then I have to, then I'm working on the obsessive part, you know. And in today's day and age, man, it's tough because there are things we have to do, we have to provide, we have to do this, and I notice in my feelings will tell me anything, anytime I'm anything but content, I'm suffering from something, and it's always taking what is and comparing it to what my imagination says could be, would be, or should be, that I want, that is most beneficial to me. And then I have those two comparisons. So now I'm in friction, right? Because I have an idea of what I want, and then I have what reality is. And then I feel it, and it's like, here I go again, suffering over my own imagination. I create every problem I've ever had. I can't possibly have a problem in the present.
Yeah,
I
I
can't.
totally get it, bro. I was once told, Glenn, stop projecting. You're stressing out about shit that may never even happen, And then if it does happen, you'll have stressed out about it twice,
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to jump in too, BG, because I want to clarify something for some of our viewers and listeners who may be watching or listening that aren't familiar with the programs. Like I talked about even earlier in the show, our hope is that with some of the people who come across this program, maybe they're still in an active addiction and in the process of looking for information, whether it be on Google or YouTube or wherever to find a way out, they find us. But maybe they're not familiar with NAAA, fucking OAGA, 12-step Dharma, whatever program. And so I've noticed this happens a lot when I have guests. We've been around the block, bro, so we know the lingo. And so you mentioned, in the literature and, at the tables and things like that. So for the layperson who isn't familiar with, these programs, these meetings, they don't know what the fuck we're talking about, and it's interesting in the Midwest, man, in Detroit, we call it, oh, you need to take that shit to the tables because we sit at a table and talk about it. Down south in Florida, they don't know what going to the tables means. It's about, oh, you need to take that shit to the rooms. It's more the rooms, kind of the same concept, so to speak, out here out west. But when we talk about the literature, for those who may be watching or listening who don't know what we mean by that, is what we're talking about is 12-step literature, whether it's the NA program, the AA program, the Dharma program, whatever. All these programs have literature. Pamphlets, we call them IPs, informational pamphlets. Of course, in AA, they have the big book. In NA, we have the basic text. We have step working guides. All this kind of stuff is basically referred to as the literature. And the information in those resources is just unbelievable and amazing. And if you're a person who thinks you may be an addict or an alcoholic or whatever the fuck you want to call it, I'm an NA guy, so for me, it's an addict, it's all inclusive, but I respect all the programs, man. I don't have no problem with all that. What I will say is, and this, BG, and all my NA friends, you read that basic text for the first time, if you truly are an addict, you can't put it down. Once you start reading it, you're like, holy fuck, somebody's been following me around my whole life, taking notes, and they wrote a book about me, Well, and then you go back and read it different times, and different things jump out at you depending on where you're at in your life. So anyway, I kind of wanted to clarify that. And then if I may, bro, because I definitely want to talk and hear from you more, I wanted to clarify one thing. Everything we were just talking about staying in the present and in the moment, I think it's important for us to clarify. Part of the reason we talk about that is because we are trying to protect our peace. If we get too stressed out about all the regrets of things from the past, whether it be as a result of our active addiction or otherwise, or too stressed out about the future and all the what ifs, it fucks with our peace. And now all of a sudden we get a case of, pardon the expression, the fuck it's, and you hear that expression around the rooms a lot. Oh God, I hope I don't get a case of the fuck it's. In other words, fuck this shit, fuck this program, fuck this job, fuck that old lady, fuck that old man, fuck the kids, fuck everything. I'm going to get high. I'm using, I'm checking out, fuck all that shit, I'll deal with it later. Well, that's the last damn thing any of us want to happen. So we got to do what we can to protect our peace. So it goes right back to what we talked about when we started that conversation. You take the dope away, which you have to do. That's the beginning. You got to take away the dope. But it don't stop there. That's just the beginning. Now what are you going to do? Like my boy Louis says, what are you recovering from? And so now you got to do things to try to protect your peace so that you don't get a case of the fuckets and have serenity, as we say in your life. Have some peace and live reasonably happy. You know, I mean, let's face it, we all have bad days where we get in a shitty mood or whatever and shit like that. But for the most part, man, you know, once we get some time and a little recovery behind us, most of the people I know that are working a good program are pretty happy, joyous, and free, like you said, you know. So wouldn't you agree that's a pretty good way to kind of paraphrase everything we were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the goal, right? Is to be happy, joyous, and free. And that's where we are at our core, you know, is happy,
Yeah.
joyous, and free.
Yes.
And I love that expression. What are you recovering from?
Yeah. Isn't
Because
that good?
that's huge, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what are you recovering from? And like you said, you take the drugs away, the suffering's still there. The
Mm-hmm.
drugs were just something I used to mask the suffering that I was going through. And it's absolutely silly to even be suffering anything, right? Because
Right.
it's like, what am I, or what? You know, what exactly what am I suffering? Just
Mm-hmm.
reality. You know,
Yeah.
I was just suffering reality. And like I said, there needs to be, in order for any form of suffering, there has to be what is in my comparison to how I think it should be. And I think that's not the answer, for lack of a better term, but what I always had this outlook, right, that I need, like I was talking about before, with everything in life gears us to be the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even I get into the to recovery. I put the drugs down, and I'm still suffering. Those first 6 months were absolutely terrible, and that's why I kept going back out, because I thought that using, you know, putting the drugs down felt like how I felt then, but now I'm not getting high either. So now all I want
Right.
to do is get high to run from my feelings, you know, but now I'm not anymore. And I thought that that's all life was ever going to be, was how to live like that. And, you know, it took a little bit of time, but that's not the case. Everything starts opening up eventually, you know.
Right. Well, you know what, BG? I just got to tell you something, bro, because something you just said fucking blows my mind, man. It just goes to show I don't care how long you've been around, how old you are, how wise you think you may be, and know all the fucking answers or whatever. You just said something that I totally fucking loved, that I've never heard before, that I know I can use and will remember moving forward. You said, what are we suffering from? All we're really suffering from is fucking reality. Man, talk about putting that in a nice little package and cardboard box, because in a way to coolly compartmentalize it, because we all have these different topics, we'll call it, that we think are so fucking unbelievable, or oh my God, I can't believe that happened to me. And if, oh God, people only knew, because as you know, bro, we hear stories in the rooms. And for any normies who may be listening or watching, you know, you'll hear stuff in the 12-step or recovery rooms, at tables, whatever you want to call it, that in this quote unquote normal world might blow your fucking mind. And we just sit there and listen like, yeah, 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 not surprised. And I'm talking about things like, you know, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse that people are recovering from, you know, prison. I mean, the list just goes on. Fucking bizarre ass
Hmm.
stories of things people are recovering from, you know, physical things that are a direct result of using or whatever the case may be. And so I guess where I was trying to go with that is we really, you know, I'll speak for me, I'll say, because I don't want to say for anybody else. I will tend to blow things the fuck out of proportion and make, as the old saying goes, mountains out of molehills,
Hmm.
and not to minimize the seriousness of some of the things we all go through. I just love the way you just kind of made it quite simple. we're suffering from fucking reality. That shit is all reality. We've talked about this on this show before because I've touched on some topics, BG, that some might consider to be taboo. And we were talking at the end of a show once, and I said, you know what? I don't give a fuck. I really don't care what people think of me anymore. That old saying in the program, what other people think of me is none of my business, And man, I'm grateful I've gotten to a point in my life where I feel that way, because like I said at the beginning of the show, sometimes, and that all the more reason I admire you, man, and appreciate you being on the show, because sometimes you do get a little self-conscious about putting yourself out there like this, especially when if you have kids, family members, coworkers, or maybe in-laws who didn't notice about you, and when you see them in person, you try to be respectful and speak a certain way or whatever, and it's like, fuck all that, man. I gotta be me. I can't be that phony guy no more playing this fucking role. It's like, if my in-laws or my kids, family, or whatever the fuck, they don't like what I'm doing with this show, I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you, bro. I gotta be me,
Yeah.
And so, anyway, I guess where I'm going with that, man, is that, we do tend to make mountains out of molehills sometimes and stress out about things. And just make a lot more out of it than it really is, like just being yourself, And sometimes we think people are thinking about us maybe a little more than they actually are. I've had people tell me, Glenn, ain't nobody fucking thinking about you at the level you think they are, bro. Just do you and don't fucking worry about it, And so, anyway, I just had to interject, BG, and tell you that I thank you. I appreciate you sharing that with me, that really, for most of us, what we're recovering from is our reality. It's all reality, So it is what it is,
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's in AA. What is it? Acceptance is what is it? Acceptance is the answer to all of my problems, right? Every single problem I ever had, it's just from a lack of acceptance of what is, and sometimes that's harder. Sometimes, obviously on degree of what it is, that can be harder to do. But in the bare core of every issue there is, that's the problem, So that means if acceptance is the answer to all the problems, then my total lack of acceptance is the cause of all problems. Everything has to be both ways, and yeah, that was always my problem, man.
Yeah, you touched on something a little earlier that made me think to myself, there's that. You mentioned like society and things, the to that nature, how society will almost like try to brainwash us into thinking certain things should be a certain way. And what came to mind was the old, cliche of the white picket fence and the perfect 3.2 kids and the old Leave It to Beaver, kind of thing. Of course, some of our young listeners may not know. Go watch Leave It to Beaver, Ozzy and Harriet, those types of things. That ain't fucking reality, man. It never was. Even back then, every fucking family has their issues, man. Even when it comes to this whole thing of addiction, I've talked with people on this show who, they ain't addicts, but it affects every family in some way or another, whether it's a brother, a sister, a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a aunt, a uncle, a coworker, a colleague. Nobody's untouched by this shit,
Yeah.
And so for us to live into some fantasy world, comparing ourselves to some, Leave It to Beaver family that never even fucking really existed, trying to that old keeping up with the Joneses kind of thing, it's all bullshit, and you'll never be happy or happy, joyous, and free, as we said.
Yeah.
If you're trying to maintain that level, it's all about dealing with, like what you said, bro, dealing with reality,
I'm constantly, it's a constant thing, it's either I'm aware of that or I'm not aware of it. Everything's really simple and cut and dry. Once I see and I'm aware of it, the problems have to, for lack of a better term, problems, they have to dissipate. The suffering has to dissipate once I see it for what it is, because it's a part of life. We all, it's natural, almost, especially nowadays, like I've been saying, is to want more and for this to happen. And there's always an end, of where this is heading, and if society as a whole, if all of us were to just be present and content with exactly where we are, everything would come to a standstill. You know,
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
everything would halt. You know, and I mean, you know, when society the energy behind the society as a whole is
Mm-hmm.
towards gaining and the
Yeah.
next level, it has to come up with ways to pull everything human beings with
Mm-hmm.
it to keep that
Mm-hmm.
mindset also, you know. And when we look around, energy's contagious, you know.
Yeah.
Everything is geared towards that, man. So it's especially tough nowadays, you know, with the way things are. If it was, you know, back before, you know, social media and before,
Oh. Yeah.
you know, anything, man. If you take off any sort of you shut the lights off on any sort of entertainment and distractions that we have, and everybody was just with what they have around them, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody would
Mm-hmm.
genuinely be a lot more at peace because they'd be looking reality in the face, you know. Now it's
Right.
so easy to be distracted by everything and have it geared towards, it's just a total sense overall of discontentment, you know. And I don't want to say struggle, but you know, I like I said, I pay attention to my feelings now, man, and it's a daily thing. You know, it's a
Mm-hmm.
daily thing, and the answer is always to center myself and see it for exactly what it is. And I'm go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to say I agree with what you're saying. I'll also say for me, BG, and I know for a lot of others, we've talked about it on this program, that sometimes, because I totally agree with you, bro, sometimes I just got to be centered, alone, in silence, in meditation with myself. It's not easy to do sometimes because we are so used to those distractions in our society, like you alluded to. Now, you know, social media, radio, TV, everything. You know, there was a time when all that shit didn't exist. Where I was going with that is we've talked about this on this show many times. There are also what I'll call healthy distractions. And we've talked about it in depth on this show. One of them is music. You also do have to be careful, you know, that you choose the kind of music for the mood you want to create and not let the music create the mood for you, because that can
Mm,
happen too. You know, I will say, you know, and I'm going to fully acknowledge this, that my obsession with music, and it's been that way my whole life, uh, definitely borders on being unhealthy because it's on all the fucking time. I mean, literally, I can be up 10 minutes and I got music playing, you know, and it's just in my earbuds, it's in my car, it's, you know, all, you know, and it's just kind of one of my things, though. I've just always kept up on music. I love listening to the older stuff. I'm very eclectic. I listen to fucking anything. I like keeping up on new stuff. I talk with my kids about music, friends, you know, you get the idea.
mm,
Thing of it is, though, it has made it, I've noticed this, man, even more of a challenge for me to sit alone in peace and in silence. And that's where, even going back to the whole yoga thing, you know, I know a lot of people like doing yoga at home. I love going to the studio because it gets me out of myself. You know, you can't play music in a yoga studio. You follow what I mean? So, you know, I do think, you know, that there are certain healthy distractions, you know, that we can incorporate into our life, but it's definitely a challenge to turn off and be alone and centered. So I totally get what you're saying, and we've talked about it even on this show about the value of meditation. And speaking of the literature, you know, it tells us right in there the value of meditating.
yeah.
You know. Hmm.
Quiet moments of meditation, we get in touch with the God within us. Step.
Yeah. Yes, you know, and I truly believe that, man. That's another saying I learned around the program is, you know, we pray for answers and then meditate and listen for those responses. You know what I mean? Or pray for
Yeah,
guidance and listen for the answers in meditation.
yeah.
And it blows my mind, man. I posted something the other day. I went to yoga and, you know, we always do a meditation at the end. And I like posting shit online. I check in at places. I know it probably irritates the fuck out of people sometimes, but hey, it is what it is. And I posted, went to yoga and I go, I mean, time for me to manifest some new shit. I'm real curious to see what HP is going to come up with this time, because
Right.
that's where I'm at in my life now, bro. I try to live in the spirit. And sometimes things that happen to me in my life blow my mind, and I just feel like, God damn, man, what's gonna happen next? What's got in mind for my crazy ass now?
Yeah. Yeah, man. And there's always so much, there's always so much extra around it, but that's the core of it all, right? Is, are you enjoying
Yeah,
right now?
yes,
You
yes,
know,
yes. Uh-huh.
there's really not much. That's the simplicity of all of it, is, are we enjoying
Mm-hmm.
and content with right now?
Yeah.
Anything outside of that is noise and extra. You know what I mean? If you really want to see it for what it really is, when we break it down, are we enjoying right now?
Yes.
That's what it comes down to.
Yep. Well, hey, BG, if I may, man, let me ask you this. You can go however far or little into this you feel comfortable with or may want to. One of the, well, really, a couple of the topics that we exchanged messages on that I've mentioned our enlightenment and spirituality. So we talked a little bit about, drugs, addiction, recovery, and being in the present moment and all. What is your journey with enlightenment and spirituality been on this recovery path? And I'd like to elaborate just a little bit before we hear your answer, because I've shared openly on this program, I know that for some people, and I know this to be true because I've had conversations with them about it, and I know to a certain extent it included me. When they first come around the programs, or maybe they don't come around them because they hear this, that there's this whole God thing, and it freaks people out when they come into a 12-step meeting, and it's like, oh God, here come the holy rollers, gonna start praying over me and all that other
Mm.
shit. And nothing against all that. I don't say that in a disrespectful way to anybody who is a very spiritual, religious person. I'm just saying that, for people when they come in and their mind's still all fucked up on the dope and shit, they just want to get clean, man. They just want to have a little peace in their life. Maybe, fix their family life, fix their job. Maybe it's legal problems or whatever. And man, their mind just ain't in a place for that. Some people are, and they have this burning bush and, oh, God save me and all that stuff. And that's great. My experience has been that for most people, it's a process and can take a very long time. So I guess with all that said, my question to you, BG, is when you came into the rooms and you started getting clean and all, what was your journey like with that? I mean, did you already kind of have some good, strong, solid foundation of spirituality in your life, or is that something you had a challenge with, or, what was your journey like with all that?
Yeah, no, I had the complete opposite of of a strong sound understanding
Yeah,
of
like most of us.
of
Yeah.
of any of that. Yeah, I was completely self-obsessed and consumed and suffering everything about life, And yeah, it says right in the basic text, our concept, that's a huge word, our concept of God comes not from dogma, right? And there's
Yeah.
there's no place, and it's not me that this is speaking on the concept even of this program as it relates to life as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Mm-hmm.
space in this program for organized religion, and
Right. Right.
it very much so drills that in, if you read the literature,
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
it's that tripped me up for a long time, man. My whole dad's side of the family was the complete opposite. Everyone used, none of them are left anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
my whole mom's side of the family, the answer to everything was Christianity, man. And I'm not here to talk bad about anything, man, but it was always the thing with religion, in my opinion, not opinion, but from my seat of how I see things and my
Yeah.
the awareness that I've gathered anyway. It kept me separate from the source. You know what I mean? So
Oh
it
yeah,
was,
I do.
again, it was still geared same. It's all the same. It was same thing with, as I've been saying, the next level thing. It's always ahead. It's always something outside of myself I'm relying on. And it's a tool that's necessary for a lot of people to get to the place of understanding, as it says in step 11. We get in touch with the God within us, and that's not, that's in the 11th step for a reason, but it's the same thing with, if you take the concept of religion out, what are we praying to? Ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, my whole body and my instrument, what I am, is just a way of the universe seeing and experiencing itself.
Man,
It's
I
just
like
like,
that description, bro. Yeah.
it's just like anything else, any other plant or animal or anything else. It's like, it blooms when the manifestations are correct, when the circumstances are correct for it to be here. It wasn't, it is, and then it's not going to be again. And we're not separate from the source.
Well, you know what, BG? I got to interject right there, because you know what? Something you said, I've shared on this program. And at meetings, I came to a realization, if that's the correct way to put it, uh, probably about a little bit over a year into my recovery and clean time this time. And I can remember sitting at that East Side Alano Club in East Detroit, and that boy Biber at the table with a bunch of other people. And it just came to me, and I was like, God, because we were talking about, spirituality and HP and the whole God thing and faith and all that. And it just came to me, and I said, oh my God, man. Pardon the pun, I said, I've been running around my whole damn life trying to find God, and that motherfucker been right here the whole time, And by the way, I don't say that in a disrespectful way to any normies watching. You go to an NAAA fucking A meeting, you will hear people say it that way all the time. Man, that God motherfucker right here, It's like, we don't mean it disrespectfully. It's just we use very colorful language, let's say, around the program, man. For anybody with them virgin ears, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't sugarcoat shit on this program either, and that's why we put that disclaimer there on the front end. But it's true, bro. I totally get what you just said. I feel like, and I'll say this, BG, and I'm so glad we're talking about this, man, because this is one of my favorite things to talk about. Boy, that boy Shebang will tell you, we've had long, deep conversations, about this kind of stuff, and I have with other people in the program. I love talking about spirituality and enlightenment and stuff, and it's like, there was a time in my life when, and it still creeps back up in there every once in a while, where I will feel pompous saying that God is in me, or I've been looking around my whole life for him and he's been right here the whole time, or say that God is working in my life. Like, like, who the fuck am I? What makes me so fucking special that God is working in my life? But meanwhile, you got all this fucking tragedy going on around the world. The poor 6-year-old girl crossing the street chasing a ball gets killed by a car. The rapes, the murders, the wars, the whatever. Pick your fucking tragedy, And meanwhile, me, this crazy, stupid, fucked up fucking dope fiend, God saved my ass, What makes me so special? And I thought to myself, man, for me to go and profess that at a meeting or anywhere else, I felt like a fucking phony. Who the fuck am I to say that? And then, furthermore, to take it a step further, BG, have felt that way many, many times about other people I've sat across the table from. I never, would say it out loud, but I'd be sitting there thinking, motherfucker, you just shared with us how you were a fucking thief, a dope fiend, did this, did that, but now, oh, God saved you and he's working in your life today, but he don't give a fuck about nobody else, you know what I mean? And so that has been one of my biggest challenges, and I know for many, many others I've had deep conversations with about this, my biggest challenge with faith. And so where I'm going with this, and I definitely want to hear your input on this, bro, is I had to come to a place of just saying to myself, you know what? I choose to believe. I had somebody tell me something once in the program, and this really helped me. And it doesn't even necessarily explain it away. What he said to me was, Glenn, you can come up with every fucking excuse under the sun not to believe. Even that boy Brian, who I know you know, he told me once, Glenn, you got to quit trying to intellectualize this shit. You can't do it. Get the fuck out of your own way, man. You're your own worst enemy on this shit. You can't think your way through this. These are answers that none of us will ever really know. Hopefully, if we live our life right or whatever, we might get the answers on the other side if there is another side, you know. But the point I'm making, the way I got past feeling like a phony is by saying I choose to believe. And then, like I was alluding to with all those tragedies, I had a guy say to me, Glenn, when it comes to your faith, just remember, none of that shit had anything to do with you, okay? You don't know what that was all about. And that has nothing to do with your faith, okay? And so, again, that almost might sound like an excuse or a cop out or whatever. When I really internalized it, I had to say to myself, well, he's right. It doesn't really have anything to do with me personally in my journey in my faith. So to get past that feeling of feeling like I said, like a phony, to say God is right here and he's working in my life and all that, I just say I choose to believe. And my faith is actually quite strong right now, BG. It fluctuates, I think, like anybody in life, at up and down at different times of my life, depending on my mental health, my physical health, my fatigue level, whatever the fuck, my level of working on myself. But right now, my faith is pretty strong. But anyway, I know that was a lot of information I just kind of threw out there and threw at you, but, what's your thoughts and feelings on all that? I mean, have you had them similar struggles, and what did you do to kind of get past that and come to peace with it?
Yeah, I mean, everything's a flow and an up and down, right? It's not always going to be everything. Everything has to be a flow. Like, everything in
Right.
life is flow. Everything's going to come. Everything's going to come up. It's going to come down, constantly back and forth. It's just being centered, in my opinion. It's just being centered through all of it.
Yeah.
Taking everything. It's always that's always the answer. It's like, I know I might end up sounding redundant,
No, no,
but it's
no, man.
always it is just being in exactly what is, even if I break down the word faith, right? I'm saying I believe and I'm hopeful that things are going to what? You know what I mean? As opposed to what? Because now again, I'm foreshadowing into something being how I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's gonna be what it is, just like it is right now.
Yeah,
You know?
going back to what you said earlier, it's reality, man.
Yes, it always it's like there's even words, words and language, the concept of language, like it takes us further away from the source of the awareness of right now.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I even speak or anybody, you take a concept of a word, we hear a word and it means something. It takes the magic out of all of it, out
Mm.
of the whole existence, that we don't have any idea of how any of this is even happening. I hear the word bird, and I know what to imagine. Now I think I understand it. So I
Mm.
lose all magical wonder of what that actually is, because
Right,
now I
right.
think I have an intellectual grasp on what that thing is. I
Yeah,
don't, that is
right.
just as, for lack of a better word, again, just as miraculous and as anything else, and that's what it makes concepts in general, makes us lose our wonder of what is, and the wowness of what is,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's what it always comes back to, is here and now and myself,
Right.
which isn't separate from the source. I mean, everything outside of that is speculation, concept, and noise, that's
Noise,
really
man. Isn't that true? A lot of noise in
a
this.
lot of a lot of trying to explain and articulate and get around to, again, right now where I was, just with a different sense of awareness. If life is a continuous here and now, you know, then time is even completely irrelevant, right? I mean, it's just been a continuous here and now flowing with what is, you know, and it always comes back to my awareness, man. You know, if I'm seeing clearly and I'm aware and I'm present, which is just reality, I can't have anything to worry about. I can't be suffering anything. It's physically impossible.
Yep.
It's impossible, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like I've said to you before, out you know, outside of this is these tools, man, of imagination and memory. And if we don't, you know, me, I'll speak from experience, not knowing how to use those or being even aware of what those are will wreak havoc on my present without me even knowing it, you know. And that's what separates us, our level of consciousness, from other things, you know, is this imagination and this memory, man. And they're incredible tools if I can use them right. If not, they're going to use me, you know, and they're going to dictate how I feel and what I'm experiencing inward. If I'm not taking my inward, you know, and using those tools to reflect and dictate the outcome, you know, outside of me, then they're going to work opposite and they're going to run me internally.
Wow, bro. You know, I just got to say, man, what you just said is so much deeper than appears on the surface, BG. And I can't, well, no, really, man, I can't thank you enough for saying it the way you just did. Because, like I said earlier, just when you think you know it all, you hear something new that, you know, that I certainly will be able to apply. And you use the words imagination and memory, so fucking powerful in regards to what we're talking about. And that if we don't take those things and harness them and use them and utilize them in a positive fashion, they'll fucking take control of us. I've never heard it explained that way before, so I can't thank you enough, man, because it's true. When we're talking about the past and the future, that's really what we're talking about here with imagination and memory. I got some fucked up memories from my past, dude, like anybody does. I got some damn good ones. I got some great memories, but I got some fucked up memories too. I'm talking about shit all the way back from fucking childhood trauma and all that other shit we've talked about on this program, that is just reality. Yeah, we want to say hi to Amanda, who just joined in. Amanda in the chat room. I saw you looked over too, man. Hey, welcome to the program, Amanda. And man, we got about a half dozen viewers still watching. We appreciate all of y'all hanging with us and everybody else in the chat room. But yeah, man, if we don't harness those memories and try to, you know, if I can say it this way, when we do trip back into the memories, because I do think some memories are very healthy, man. They're learning experiences. Like I said earlier, God, if I could go back to being a younger man and know the shit I know now, fuck, I'd be a billionaire. You know what I mean? I would do a lot of things different. You know, not that I have a lot of regrets, you know, because I am where I'm at now. I also will say there's some things I would definitely have done and would do differently, but I can't focus on all those negative memories that fuck with my peace to the point where I get a case of the fuckets and want to go use, you know? And then, like you said, man, my imagination, if I let that fucker run wild and start thinking about the future, now I'm filled with anxiety. Oh God, what if this happens or what if that happens? And like I said earlier, I had a boy tell me, God damn, Glenn, you stressing about shit that may never even happen, man. If it does, you stress yourself out about it twice, you know. So when I can use my imagination, how shall I say, constructively in a good way, kind of like what I was saying, going to yoga, meditating, whether it's at yoga or any other kind of meditation, and trying to manifest positive shit, praying for guidance, as we say, listening for that answer, then my imagination can manifest some good positive shit and not anxiety about the future like, oh God, what's going to happen, man. So I mean it, bro. I don't mean to flower it up, BG, but I've never heard it explained that way before. And that was so powerful. I thank you and I appreciate you sharing that. And I would imagine our viewers and listeners and anybody else who comes across the recorded version of this program and hangs with us that long to hear the way you explain that will appreciate it too. Definitely some great wisdom you just shared there, man, because those are two very powerful things. And like I said, on the surface, it don't sound as deep as it is. Oh, your memory, imagination. But when you dig deep into that, fucking powerful, man. They can take control of your life and you wouldn't even know it unless you pay attention, you know? So that was good shit right there, bro. That was some heavy shit. And, you know, all the more reason, man. I'm just so glad we were able to have you on the show today, BG, because, man, I feel like we could talk for hours, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure we will more. And on that note, bro, I would love to have you back on the program again at some point down the road. You know, we're 16 episodes in, but I did make a commitment, as I've said on here many times, to do this show for 1 full year. And then, you know, as we're coming up on that year, I'll kind of gauge it, see where we're at with it. Like I said, I know it's a lot of work doing this. You know, some days I'm like, God damn, what have I done, man? I've created all this fucking work for myself. I'm supposed to be retired and shit now, but you know, hey, if it's all for the good, man, if it helps even one person, then it's all worth it. And God, for the sake of today, I'm that person, you know, that it helped, you know. I mean, it really, truly did help me a lot, you know. So I'm just so glad that we were able to have you on today, man. And we're not like right down to, you know, some crunch time clock where we got to wrap it up immediately, but we're certainly in the home stretch, BG. Before we get there, though, do you want to add anything else that maybe we didn't touch on that you'd like to talk about on the program here today?
Not in particular, man. No, I'm just happy to be that you invited me on, man. I really am, and I'll come on here anytime you want me to, man. I'm always happy to talk with you, Glenn. You're one of my favorite people that I've met in the program. I hope you know that, man. For real, you genuinely are.
Thank you.
Same with Shavang too. I've said that a couple times. I know he's listening. I love you too, man. As human beings, as people, I love both you guys and your energy, man. I really do.
Appreciate that, man. I really, really do. And the feeling is mutual. And hey, just so you know, man, that boy Shabang, he's supposed to come out and visit soon. He keeps procrastinating about booking his flight. And I'll extend the same invite to you, BG, man. You ever want to come out to Northern Cali, man? I got a spot. We'll go do some things, you know. And yeah, I guarantee to have a good time out here, man. But I really do hope to see you when I come back to the D and visit Detroit in late August. I'm trying to remember the dates. I think it's like the last week of August. I'm coming up for my nephew's wedding reception and all, but I'll be there for a week. And you know I'll be bopping around town to some meetings and stuff like that. So definitely hope to see you while I'm up there, man. And, you know, all that said, I can't thank you enough for being on the program today, BG. But before we go, we're going to wrap it up with just a few humorous things, as I mentioned
Glenn.
on the front end.
Hey, Glenn, before we do that.
Yeah, go ahead, Dean. Go ahead.
You know that first story that you brought up, that drugs seized, it was like
in San Francisco,
4 kilos. I just, you know.
It was enough to kill the entire population of the city.
Right. I was kind of like, you know, in my head, I was trying to wrap my head around that, and so I kind of get on. I start Googling. I'm like, well, 4 kilos.
4.2.
You know, how much is a dose of fentanyl? And I'm looking at it, and it's saying that 2 milligrams is a lethal dose.
Yeah. Yep.
And there's 1 million milligrams in a kilo.
Crazy, isn't it?
So you're talking there's 2 million lethal doses that they pulled off the streets. I mean, I'm just kind of wrapping my head around it. And you think about like a kilo when you see the movies, you know, the drug movies, you know, when they show a kilo of cocaine or something. It's like a bag. It's like a brick, you know. To have literally 500,000 in that one bag, 500,000 lethal doses.
I know.
And then I started looking at, well, what's a normal, I think it's maybe 10% of a milligram, like 0.1 milligrams is like in a normal fentanyl pill. So it kind of makes you wonder, you know, that
I got a lot of personal experience with that in general, man. That fentanyl is absolutely no joke. You know, just like you said, we go into anything. I had in the past, you know, with using, obviously, I had a couple different houses and a couple different instances where they would actually reach out to me when they got new shit, you know, and they were mixing shit.
Yeah.
and it takes a very small difference. I mean, it's impossible to even describe. I've gone to houses and shot a pack of dope from a house and barely felt anything, and shot another pack, like a half a pack from the same house, and OD'd instantly. I mean, there's absolutely zero way of measuring it because we're down to granules, man. Oh, it's absolutely impossible.
Too, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, there's absolutely no way of absolutely measuring it. It's so powerful and it's so strong, that there's no way. A good friend of mine, I've known him. I mean, that goes without saying, man. One of my best friends since we were kids. He just OD'd last night and passed away.
Oh my God! Just last night?
Just last night, yeah.
Wow, I'm sorry to hear that, BG, man.
Yeah.
And all the more reason I appreciate you coming on today after having to process losing one of your boys just last night, man.
You know what, man? It may sound I'm almost numb to it, man. And I don't mean that in any sort of insensitive way, but it's what happens, and we all know, man. I've been dealing with that for a real long time. I mean, I partied with my dad when I was 13 years old. I was smoking crack with my dad, and he he OD'd and passed away when I was, I don't know, 18, I think, 17. My whole dad's side of the family's gone. I got one uncle left, and he's running around the east side of Detroit right now doing God knows what, and it's just what happens, man. It really is. So many people around me, man, and it's a tragedy, man. But we know, when we're
it's true what you say. I don't mean to interrupt you, bro, but we almost become immune to it because it happens so often. I'll share this real quick story, and I'm sure you've heard this before, BG and Dean. I know you've heard me say it on this program before. There's that saying around the rooms, man. If you're going to choose to stay around NAAA or whatever program you want to decide you want to stay around, you ought to buy yourself a nice suit because you're going to need it. You'll probably be going to a lot of funerals, and then they say, and if you don't fucking stay clean, we might just end up having to use that suit for you.
Yeah.
And I certainly have been to my share of NA funerals, and it's the saddest goddamn thing, man. We got a lot of things in common, BG. I don't want to, go on and on about it too much, but the same damn thing happened in my dad. His whole side, was one of 7 kids. This shit wiped out that whole fucking family, man. The whole family. I mean, I say the fucking family. These are my relatives, but wiped them all out, man. I come from a long line of dope fiends, alcoholics, drug addicts, whatever you want to call them, man. God bless them. And you know what? They were great people, man. I loved them to death. Family people, they had the sickness, man, and they couldn't stop, and it shit fucking killed them, And then there's that old saying too: if the dope or the booze don't get you, the lifestyle will. Dean, going back to what you said, bro, there's a picture out there on the internet. I bet you guys have seen it, and our viewers and listeners probably have, where someone takes a penny and they put the amount of fentanyl on this penny right above, is it Lincoln's head, that shows a little bit amount of fentanyl it takes to kill somebody. And it goes right back to what you were saying, BG. You look at this fucking picture and you think to yourself, how the fuck could you even cut that up enough to spread it through a pack, to fucking distribute it evenly or whatever? You can't. So you said makes sense. It's like,
I'm going to try and share this picture real
quick. Oh, you got
quick,
the picture? Okay, yeah.
You say that, and I had to Google it,
Okay,
so
show this picture, man.
Let me show this screen here.
It just reiterates everything BG was just saying.
All right. Boom. Look at the penny. Go. Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that's a penny.
Look at that.
That's all it takes.
That's a lethal dose.
That's a lethal dose of fentanyl. Now, how are you going to cut that up enough and spread it around in a pack to evenly distribute it? You can't. And so it just goes to show what you said, BG. You can do one pack and it's like you don't even fucking like, damn, this is some shitty ass dope. And then you do another pack and it fucking kills you because you got amateurs trying to mix this shit up in the kitchen sink, to use that phrase.
And mixing it with other shit to make you feel like you're getting more.
Oh, the trank, the xylazine, or whatever the fuck. Yeah, this is it, man. And so
I hear people say all the time, they're cutting stuff with fentanyl, and they are, other things that it's not supposed to be in. But in Detroit, people are buying fentanyl. That's what
they want.
That's what they want. It's not that they're like worried about the dope being cut with the fentanyl. They want fentanyl. They're buying it by the pack. Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that crazy, man? It's insane. So there again, if I want to say this. If we have a viewer listener who's stuck with us, or maybe just picking up the program now and what we're talking about now, when I was dope sick, and really, man, especially there at the end, that last year or so, man, I would get so sick sometimes because I'd cop and then I'd burn through whatever the fuck I had like that, And then all of a sudden I'm dope sick again, hoping something else would come in, or whatever. And there were times when I came across some shit that I knew they were fucking fake pills. I'd take one look at them and go, ooh, man, this shit don't look like the real deal. These are some pressed fucking pills. And my sick thinking was so fucked up, it was like, close enough. You know what I mean? And all it takes is something like this. And that's why I say, y'all, I don't mean to compare bottoms and say I was any better or any worse than anybody else. Point I'm making is I just feel like I'm living on borrowed time. I'm just grateful to still be alive because, man, you talk about your boy dying last night. Me and Shebang had to talk about this once, BG. Sometimes, for some of us in the program, it's a real thing where we almost feel like survivor's guilt. Like, how am I still alive when so-and-so or so-and-so and so-and-so is dead? And I was doing the same fucking thing or worse,
Yeah, I was literally just talking about this morning. I said, anybody who reached out to me about people that, that go back to childhood with me dying, nobody would have ever guessed, that if anybody was going to go, it was me. I mean, everybody in my family was ready for it. It was just what was going to happen. I mean, it got to the point where I'd OD and nobody was showing up in the hospital. Nobody's coming to the hospital when I OD'd. It was another overdose. I was ODing all the time. Right. Yeah, man. It's everybody was prepared for it. And who'd have thought?
Yeah. Well, you know what, BG? It just kind of, as you were talking and thinking about everything I just said too, and Dean, I appreciate you bringing that up so we could just elaborate on this a little bit more, is that it all kind of comes back to me about this whole fucking stigma attached to, addiction and just doing this show and what we're talking about, kind of like what I said earlier. The more taboo the topic, the more I want to fucking talk about it on this show, Fuck all this stigma. Oh, we don't want to talk about that. No, what? Too many people are dying, man. And this shit affects every family. Like me and you just talked about, BG. We got a lot more in common than I think we even realize, man. This shit wiped out one whole side of my family. Wiped them out, man. I'm trying not to get emotional talking about it. It's been years that a lot of them guys are gone, but I still get emotional about it because that's part of my history and growing up, talking about them memories that, I try to channel in a positive way and not, there's that old fucking Hank Williams Jr. tune, carrying on a family tradition, that was like my theme song for a while I was using, and I really felt like that was gonna be my story, like I'm just fucking gonna burn down like they did, and thank God I was able to pull myself out of it again and hope I never have to fucking go back to living like that again, you know what? And so at the end of the day, man, it all comes down to all the things we were talking about on the show today, and I appreciate BG too, that, in the front end, man, we asked you a little bit about drugs and addiction, and you said, you know what? We don't really need to go there. I fucking used, and you elaborated on it a little bit just here in the last 5-10 minutes and all. But, it ain't always all about the war stories. It's more about the things we talked about on this edition of the show today. Once you take the dope away, hey, we all know how to fucking use. We all know them war stories. We all been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, no matter which level. Sometimes we come into rooms and, I was talking about this at a meeting the other night. Some of us try to act all gangster and shit like, oh, I was using in this trap house or I was using in that hood or with these people or whatever. Bitch, it don't fucking matter. It's all the same shit. If you an addict, you an addict. I don't give a fuck if you got high on Park Place or Park Bench. You sitting in this fucking room now with us, ain't you, So it really don't matter. It's like now that you take the dope away, going back to what we said earlier, that boy Louis says, what are you recovering from? What are you going to do about it now?
I say that all the time. I say I quit using every time I ran out of money. The problem is, why am I going and why am I trying to get more? And to go back on what we were saying, man, when we really look at it for what it is, especially with heroin addicts, fentanyl addicts, whatever, the goal was to get as close to dying and not actually doing it. If you really look at it, when in the height of my using, as how much I was suffering normal life, and how much I wanted an escape. It says in there, oblivion is preferable, and that's the deepest part of it. I would have rather been sawhorsed, standing up with my forehead on the ground, knotted out, than actually facing normal life. And that was the goal. It's like being on this side of it now and looking at it, that's what it was. It's like I'm trying to, every single pack of dope I shot, I was trying to get as close to actually dying as possible without actually going there. And that's absolutely insane, it's insane. And like you said, what am I recovering from?
You mentioned that word in the basic text, oblivion. Whew, what a powerful word that is, man. And yeah, that's unfortunately what we're all trying to get to when we're caught up in active addiction is how far can I go without going all the way? And man, there's that one tune. What's that Van Halen tune? I always think about it when I hear that lyric. I've been to the edge and I stood and looked down, because that's how I always think about using when I hear that tune, because that's how I feel, the way you just described it, man. I have taken myself right to the fucking edge so many times. And that kind of goes right back to what I was saying before, that whole survivor's guilt thing. If Shebang, if you're still with us in the chat there, man, God damn, I think about that young boy Colin all the time. I've mentioned him on this show. There's this young guy, BG, that sat right next to me over at that Eastside Alano Club meeting in East Detroit, a couple of years ago now, it's probably been. And man, he just reminded me so much of myself when I was that age, because, he was a younger guy in his 20s struggling, trying to get back on track. And couple days later, I was at the same meeting, and they told me he died. He went back out, OD'd on, fucking fentanyl laced dope and died. And I think about him all the time, man. And so it's like, God damn, like we say in the program, man, in the rooms, but for the grace of God, there go I. You know what I mean? Could have been me just as easy. And so, just
simple decision.
Yeah, and it's just like I said, going back to the beginning of this program, self-conscious when you first start doing a program like this, putting yourself out there. When I first talked to Dean about doing this show, he's like, all right, Glenn, but I hope once you ring that bell, man, there ain't no taking it back. And, I had to really sit with myself, talk about meditation, and really say, okay, man, once I do this, that's it, But when I think about, these young guys like Colin and your boy last night, man, that's a fucking powerful message just right there, telling us, hey, here you are on the show today and confiding in us and share with us you lost one of your boys just as recent as last night to an OD. That takes any reservations, self-consciousness or whatever away like that for me doing this show, man. Like I said, if we can help even one fucking person by talking about this openly and just sharing and hopefully being some kind of inspiration to anybody who's trying to get through it. Or I'll also say, BG, we have a lot of viewers and listeners I hear from all the time. I get DMs and messages all the time of people who are like you and I, who are very active in the program. I know we got people in the chat today who got quite a bit of clean time who appreciate what we're doing here and what we talk about. And so, again, man, I can't thank you enough for being with us today. And Dean, thank you again for bringing that up, man. Because yeah, man, that's this fentanyl thing, it ain't no joke. And I don't mean to keep going on and on about it, you guys, but I will say, I mention it on this program a lot, that this fucking opiate epidemic, it's been around for a long time, man. This ain't, nothing that's getting any better. A lot of people, sometimes they think it's getting better. It's kind of falling on the back burner or whatever, but it's getting worse. It's not getting better. It keeps getting worse. Like I just showed earlier, that news story. For the month of May, the city of San Fran had their highest fentanyl OD rate ever on in the history, of tracking this kind of shit. So I'm glad to see there's things going on, programs like what we talked about in the news. They have crackdowns on certain areas. They got to do something, this innovative program in Detroit where they're doing these mobile intervention units. That's good, I think, and I'm just glad there's stuff going on like that. But again, going back to us, even with this show, man, if this show is little, just one fucking podcast out there on the internet, but if we can get through to even one person, it's all worth it. And I certainly think we talked about some things on the program today that can be of help and inspiration to anybody who might be struggling or just trying to continue to live clean and sober. So, BG, thank you again for being on the show with us today. Anything else you want to add, bro, before we wrap up?
No, sir. I think we just about covered everything, man. Just for anybody still struggling, like you said, man, it's you got to give it a shot. You got to give it a shot. I know for me, I was in and out for years, and last time I was in treatment, I was around the same type of people that I've been around since kindergarten. You know what I mean? I always found myself with that group of people, you know what I mean? And I know people can relate to that. I always found myself in that center, and I always did this and it had the same result over and over again. And the repercussions got greater, of course, but I had this moment even and the last time I was in treatment, I'll say I had no intentions of staying clean. I was in there because I had a few charges in a couple different places. And, I knew what to do. I got a history of drug abuse. I got a history in the courts. But of course, it's like I'm struggling. I'm trying, let me get my stuff together a little bit. I'm sorry. I'm in treatment, blah, blah, blah. Try to minimize the consequences as much as possible and then go out again.
Sure.
And, I genuinely told myself, I'm going to stay clean for a year, no matter what. And if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, I can always go back to using. That is always going to be an option. Because like I said a minute ago, it's a simple decision in the present. What am I going, it's a simple decision. That's all it is. We're that far away. It's one decision that we are responsible for, just like everything else, And told myself I was going to stay clean for a year. No matter how I felt, no matter what, see if it was worth it.
See what happened. See if it was worth it. I like that. Yeah.
Somewhere along the lines of about 6 months, I started getting a little bit of clarity, and it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get how this is different than just feeling like I felt in those first 3 months, because I couldn't get past that, ever in the past. And I started to get some natural self-awareness and some insight. I didn't know that's what was going on, but that's what was happening. And
process,
yeah, for sure, man. So for anybody out there that's back and forth, in and out, can't struggle to get a day or can't struggle to get any more than 90 days, because I'm coming up on 3 years now, and it's my first 6-month key tag ever. I've never gotten to 6 months before. I got drawers full of white ones, orange ones, green ones, but could never get any further than that, That's what it took, man, was just being patient.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I want to interject again, BG, because those of us who've been around the block, we know exactly what you're talking about. For those who maybe aren't familiar with, 12-step programs, NAAA, whatever the case may be, as you accumulate certain increments of time being drug free or off the bottle or whatever it is, in NA, they have these key tags that are pretty cool. Like if you come in the room and, you're new, they'll say, "Hey, we'd like to welcome you," with a hug and a key tag. And, they got this little white key tag. It says, it's got the NA logo on one side and welcome just for the day on the other side. And a lot of people, having something symbolic, and something tangible like that is kind of cool. And then if you get 30 days clean, they announce at every meeting, "Hey, we'd like to recognize anybody who's got 30 days, man." And they got an orange key tag for that. And then like BG, as you were alluding to, and they have a 60-day, a 90-day, then 6 months, and 9 months, and a year, and 18 months. Which I want to say, congrats again to that girl Lori, had her 18 months today in the chat room. Congratulations, Lori. And then they have medallions. Look at that, man. I happen to have, speaking of, my 2-year medallion sitting right in front of us, man. There's my NA 2-year medallion, So, I keep that thing right there as a constant reminder. And then, of course, in the AA program, they have chips and NA, or it's key tags, and other programs have other things. So when BG was talking about having a drawer full of key tags, that's one of the sayings in the program is keep coming back, man. Keep coming back. I mean, look at my story, without getting into, rehashing my whole long story again. I've been coming to NA and 12-step programs a long time, but I had a couple horrible relapses, y'all. I wish I could tell you I stayed clean since the first time I came in the room, but the reality and the fact of the matter is that's not how it works for most people. If you're lucky enough, like me and BG have been, to survive it, you keep coming back until finally you come to some kind of understanding, a realization of like, holy fuck, man, and then you see other people that are living it and realize there is another way. And then sometimes, like what you described, BG, we'll say, all right, let me give this shit a try for and see how it goes, and then all of a sudden you realize that, hey, man, this is a pretty good life. I got a little peace in my life now. Man, especially, I'll just say for me, I don't speak for nobody else, because I've kicked a lot of different shit over the years, man. There was nothing worse than kicking them fucking opiates, man. That was the worst thing I ever been through in my life, man, is kicking them. And once you get that shit out of your system, though, it all goes back to everything we were talking about on this show today. What are you going to do to maintain your peace so that you don't say screw it and just go back out using again? There is a better way of life. So if you got caught up in that circle of addiction somehow, whether it's because you maybe you had an illness or a surgery, whatever, got hooked on the pain meds, whether you were just a young guy fucking, having fun with your friends and it snowballed out of control and now you're hopelessly addicted, or, whatever the case may be, social drinker that turned into every single day habit. It happens to the best in so many different ways. Has no boundaries. There's no discrimination. Black, white, Puerto Rican, old, young, fat, short, gay, straight, doesn't fucking matter, man. It affects every family and every segment of society. There's no boundaries when it comes to this addiction shit, and so if you're looking for a way out, hopefully, if you came across our program, we provided some kind of hope or inspiration for you here today. But like I said earlier, before we wrap up, we always kind of like to do it on a little bit of a humorous note because let's face it, man, we talk about some deep shit on this program, and we definitely got deep on a few things today. So I follow all these different things on social media like anybody else. I got a lot of friends that like posting memes and they post funny things all the time. And so my niece Beth posted this past week, and when I saw it, I literally had a belly laugh because I had never seen it before. So I messaged her. I said, "Oh, I got to show that on the podcast Sunday." So For those of y'all, of course, know the Ice Cube movie where bye Felicia, he's sitting on the porch.
Friday.
Yeah, Friday. Then he said unto Felicia, "Make haste with thy departure." You know, so that's a good one. Yeah, she said this one never gets old. So taking a hood rap movie, all about dope fiends and turning it into this old school way of saying so long, Felicia. And then what was the next one? Here, I'll go ahead and go to it. Okay, and I thought this was kind of good, especially based on some of the conversation we had today. The best way to become enlightened is to argue with people on Facebook. Man, oh man, and I'll tell you, I'll be totally transparent, y'all. I'm not proud to say it. I have been in Facebook fights with people before. Not in a long fucking time. Really, when Facebook kind of was really becoming the thing, because, I'm no stranger to social media. I'm sure, like you guys, I got involved either way back in the MySpace days, before there was a Facebook or an Insta or anything. And, man, when Facebook hit, and even now, man, some people get so fucking political. And it's like I read some of this shit, because I won't go there with politics. Believe me, I have my opinions, man. But especially on this show, I try not to go into them, because I don't want to alienate anybody on this show. Sometimes I use strong language that could offend some people, with their virgin ears, as I say. But hey, I try to keep it raw on here, because most people going through active addiction, they ain't flowering no shit up. Believe me, they're going through it, and they'll say, you get what I mean. But the point is this was funny to me, because this is the last damn way to become enlightened, man. People will put that finger out there for us to latch onto on social media all the time. I got to say this, man, just real quick. I don't want to keep going on and on about it, but I actually was rubbed a little bit the wrong way by something I just saw. Was it yesterday or the day before? And a friend of mine, Martin, in Orlando. Hey, Marty, if you see this, bro, shout out. And I know even with myself, people probably get irritated the fuck with me checking in at the gym all the time. But I don't care. I just don't care, because, as I've said on this show many times, y'all, just a little over 2 years ago, I wanted to fucking commit suicide, okay? That's how fucked up that dope had me thinking, that I just wanted to check out. I was miserable. And my health, oh my God. I ballooned up to 180 pounds, y'all. I got myself, I had a goal. My boy G was coaching me. I got all the way down to 125. Now I'm holding steady right around 140, which is a good weight for me. But the point is, that was a journey, man, and it was not easy, and now I am this fitness guy. I love going to the gym. And the point I'm making is, for those of us on that fitness journey, we monitor each other's shit, man. When I see Marty or, all these different people checking in at the gym, and they see me, we always like each other's shit. And yeah, keep going, bro. It's a motivation to each of us. But sometimes people who don't go to the gym, there's all these memes out there like, bro, nobody gives a fuck if you went to the gym. Nobody cares about you checking in at the gym. Just stop or whatever. And so anyway, he posted a picture of himself at the gym, and most people liked it and all that other stuff, but there were a couple smart asses that wrote something like, oh yeah, I'm trying to paraphrase, like, we see you at the gym again. Oh, another selfie of you at the gym. And I was going to comment on it, but I thought, okay, I'm not getting in a Facebook fight, especially on his page. I don't want to cause problems on his page, but I think I'm going to send him a private message and say, bro, I appreciate you posting them, because it's helped motivate me to reach my goals, But anyway, I kind of went off a little tangent there, but I just thought this was kind of funny, because, yeah, man, it's hard on social media. You talked about this a little bit earlier, even, BG, that, all these distractions, and you mentioned social media specifically, not only are they distractions, but boy, they can sure fuck with our peace if we let them, because people do post opinions on things that we're not necessarily always going to agree with. And man, sometimes it's so easy for us to want to lash back out at people. And, I was told once, Glenn, if somebody rubs you the wrong way, one of the best responses is to just say either to them or to myself, like, well, aren't you interesting? And so, hey, man, everybody's got another opinion, So anyway, enough about that one. Then I thought y'all would get a kick out of this with my fucking talking ass. If I am ever murdered, please take comfort in knowing that I ran my mouth until the bitter end, which I did do again on this show today. And I really appreciate y'all's patience with me when I do go off on these little tangents. But like I said, man, right at the beginning of the show, that's what the show's all about, and all the topics that we talk about on here, I'm like the Energizer Bunny, man. I just keep going and going and going. Here we've had the show going we're coming up on 2.5 hours in today's episode, which is about the longest we've done. We've gone 2.5 on a few other shows, but and, it's like we start talking about this recovery stuff, bro. I can talk about this all night long, because it's so important to me, So, anyhow, I just thought we'd show those few memes. Sometimes do a few more, but today we just had those 3. And I always like to end the show on a little bit of a humorous note. And what better humor than to make fun of yourself? Believe me, y'all, I know I'm a talker. And, even when I first thought about starting this show and I ran it by a few people, they told me, oh, God, that's right up your alley, Glenn. This will be good for you. And so, it is kind of an outlet for me, And anyway.
You are perfect for it.
Thank you for saying that, BG. Well, hey, Dean, I just want to say once again, bro, a rock star. Without going too much into it, y'all, I'll say, when I, send Dean all these photos and news stories and videos and everything, it's work for him putting that all together, and we're trying to fine tune and tweak a much more turnkey and smoother way to do it, so he doesn't have so much busy work on his end. And I don't mean to laugh, Dean. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you. But I really do appreciate all your hard work behind the scenes. Believe me, y'all, when I tell you, Dean's working hard doing things behind the scenes with the show, and the prep for it, and when we're actually live on the air. Before we check out, I just want to say we got some more comments in the chat. Amanda says, give yourself a chance. Right on, Amanda. Lori says, thank you for another great show. Appreciate that, Lori. And see, we still got about 6 people who hung with us all the way through watching. So, yeah, man, I thought it was a great show. And that's all because we had that boy BG from my hometown, Detroit City, on. BG, thank you again for being with us today. Dean, thank you for all your hard work. And with all that said, y'all, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. And, just always like to say at the end, that old saying we like to repeat on this show. If you're one of those folks we've talked about a lot on this edition of the show that's going through it, trying to get clean, maybe you're going through withdrawals, you got the fucking cold sweats, you got the restless leg and arm syndrome, you feel like you're crawling out of your skin, you got no energy, you can barely get out of bed to go to the bathroom, you got insomnia, you can't eat, it's horrible going through them withdrawals. So the point I'm making is that old saying, if you're going through hell, keep fucking going. You can do this. If guys like me, guys like BG, we can get clean and be living our best life and be reasonably happy, joyous, and free, as we said, as a result of staying and living clean, trying to practice some of this new way of living. If we can do it, you can too. Just keep going. And so with all that said, yeah, if that's you, keep fighting the good fight. We'll talk to you next week. Friendly reminder, we're hoping to have that boy Mike Woods on next week. He'll be a great guest as well, y'all. So have a great week, and we will see you next time on the Dare Me podcast.
Good night, everybody.